Okay, hello again, everybody.
What's up?
So we got an exciting new episode for you guys. So I was deciding, we could maybe do a flashback to a time that was a little bit better.
Yeah,
when there weren't massive fires and there wasn't a pandemic and we could all kind of live.
It seems like so long ago.
Yeah.
What happened?
Where we were all in theaters watching movies, watching, Avengers Endgame and stuff like that. That's
that
not
movie came out last year?
That movie came out last year.
It's wild, man.
Oh, what a year it has been.
Dude, let me tell you, the first movie I saw in theaters in 2019 was Glass. Does Glass not seem like a movie that came out 3 years ago at this point?
Glass feels like a movie that came out in the year 2000 or something.
I'm just saying, it just feels like that it's... Granted, we're 9 months into 2020, so to do a retrospective now is just like, hey, you know what? You're along for the ride. Why not? Let's do it. But it feels to me like 2019 was just like 8 years ago or something.
Forever ago, yeah.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about our top 10 films of 2019, which is pretty exciting. 2019 was definitely one of my favorite years of film of all time, I'd say. Mm-hmm. The only one that comes close, I think 2006 and 7 were very good to me too, I felt like. But this was a really good year, very deep year, a lot of interesting stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah. A lot of, all of the distribution channels were firing on all cylinders, right? The apocalypse hadn't happened yet. So we had so many good indie films coming out and get, promoted as well as they should have, go to theaters. We had a couple Netflix movies come out in theaters. It was really cool.
Yeah, it was really a great year. And, again, there was Avengers Endgame, which is the highest grossing film of all time. There was a ton of other, like you said, indie films, Netflix, Hulu, all these streaming sites have been kicking on all cylinders.
Adam Driver had 3 or 4 movies back to back. He's just killing it.
Yeah, I don't even know if there are some that don't even make my list, but he had some good performances in was it The Report? That was solid film.
Yeah.
Didn't make my list, but definitely worth watching.
Same. Didn't make my list, but pretty good.
Yeah. And so that's just like a film that just kind of gets lost, right, in the shuffle of what happened in this year.
Yeah.
So yeah. Why don't you lead us off? So what's your number 10, Lucian?
Oh, you can't do this to me, man. All right. So the little preamble real quick. My list was, I just feel like there were a lot of movies that if I would have seen them in 2019, they would have made my list. There's a lot of movies that I just get this feeling that they kind of slipped through my fingers a little bit. But from what I did see, I'm ranking these not on quality at all. I'm ranking them on kind of my knee gut reaction, my experience either watching it in the theaters or whoever I was watching with, just my raw emotional experience is what I'm ranking these on. So I have been flip-flopping number 10 between Uncut Gems and Joker. I just couldn't quite decide, and unfortunately, Joker just gets the edge at number 10. It was going to be one or the other, and the reason for that is pretty simple, is that I like what I like, and what I like is Martin Scorsese. And so because Joker did such a phenomenal job at aping a lot of Scorsese and just copying that 70s sensibility kind of note for note, I was really impressed by that. The movie itself is not one of my favorite movies of all time, and you can talk shit about Joker. I don't really care. But I do think it is exceptionally well made for what it was going for, which is good. You can kind of tell there was a creator's intent going on there, and which was, make a Martin Scorsese movie, but with a DC character. And I think they did a good job. And yeah, again, Uncut Gems is my one honorable mention, I would guess, because that is truly original, I think, compared to a lot of these other movies. But I'm going to give it to Joker just because I like Scorsese a lot.
Cool. You know what's funny? That Joker's my number 10 too, actually.
Is it really?
Yeah, it is.
Well,
yeah.
Let's discuss.
Yeah. So I really liked it too. I thought the writing was pretty good, actually. I think they did a good job of sort of, they're doing this retelling in a way that, it's also sort of relevant for our time, right? They're talking about all the stuff that was happening in New York.
Well, it was pushed that
Gotham,
way, right?
Yeah.
With all the controversies and stuff.
Yeah,
that's what it felt like to me, at least. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a real thing. I think there were real people that, it makes sense. I mean, look, there was at The Dark Knight Rises, a guy shot up a theater, right? And that movie had nothing to do with anything. It was just some crazy guy. Mm-hmm. But this, like, there was a real swell of people who were like, yeah, I really connect with this guy. And they, there's definitely an element out there of people that are very sort of socially isolated. And they're on the internet way too much, and they're on these weird sites. And, I can definitely understand why people would be nervous about the release of the film. And
absolutely.
Maybe worried about something happening. Of course, nothing happened, thankfully. Yeah. But yeah, I do feel like that kind of like pushed it out there a bit. And they're like, oh, this movie is kind of scary. Like, you never know. And, I saw like a lot of people, they talked about reviewing the film or going to the film, like there's this big thing where people tried to go in like a Joker makeup and then they got banned, and that caused more
I remember reading about that.
Yeah. Which that makes sense. I don't want you like, first off, if you do that, you're kind of crazy.
Yes.
I don't want. And second off, if you then go and even if you just like did something stupid, right? If you like, I don't know, like pissed on someone's seat and ran away laughing, I can't identify you.
It just puts something in the air, right? That just makes it more uncomfortable than it should be.
Yes. Yeah. Which is sort of the point of the film, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that he starts this movement. He doesn't know that he's doing it, but he starts this movement that's this sort of rising up against the elites sort of movement. Who's the elite being Thomas Wayne.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, the whole protesting Thomas Wayne aspect of the film is probably the most prescient. I mean, granted, we're in 2020 now, so we can say that because we can look back. But like, I think it did that. I think it's interesting that a studio like Warner Brothers would like really stick behind this movie. Granted, I think they knew they were going to make a lot of money, but it's an R-rated movie based on a comic book property, and they're not. I feel like studios still aren't. Now they are, but at the time, like Deadpool was a hit, but they weren't really comfortable with gritty R-rated stuff, and they let a big budget movie come out that was character driven, not plot driven, and was edgy and R-rated and stuff. So I think it's cool that the studio stood behind it. It gives me hope that we're gonna see more. If all we're gonna get is just like 70s movies again, then I'm happy with that.
Yeah. No, Joker is definitely a big turn. I mean, that's sort of the turn that DC is making. They're going to make more films like Joker, where they have a property and they connect an artist and they put them together and they just go with it. I mean, that's what they did with the Suicide Squad with James Gunn. They told him he could do anything. He could have done a Batman movie. He could have done a Superman movie. He could have done a Justice League movie. He could have done anything. Mm-hmm. He wanted to do Suicide Squad because, he's James Gunn.
It's just kind of up his alley, yeah.
He's James Gunn. But that's their model now is they have, and they probably are going to try and do the big Marvel style blockbuster connected universe stuff. But they want to do stuff like Joker, where you get a great actor, Joaquin Phoenix, who won an Oscar. You get a great director, and especially like a director who's either like someone that they kind of need to save or someone who has artistic integrity, but maybe they've had a falling out, or one of their staple guys, right? Like the Nolans or the Denis Villeneuves, or Todd Phillips. Todd Phillips is like one of their guys.
He's been there for like almost 15 years, 20 years. Yeah.
The Hangover films were Warner Brothers distributed, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think going all the way back to like Starsky and Hutch.
Yeah. So he's been their guy for a while, and so it was just like, here's our director. He's gonna get this actor for us, and boom, we're just gonna let you guys do what you want. And it's a R-rated. It's a pretty, I mean, at times it's a hard R. I mean, there's some scenes where he starts killing people that are really great.
Best scenes in the whole movie.
I love that. I love that scene on the train when I'm like, kill him, man, kill these motherfuckers.
Yeah, right. It's crazy. It's like, in a weird way, like that satisfies our bloodlust as an audience, but it also makes us complicit with Joker. It's just like, we are psychopaths too. I like that.
Yeah. We're part of the mob, right? Like we're just like, yes, kill this guy.
Exactly.
But yeah, and again, he won an Oscar. I thought it was a really good performance. And yeah, this is a very different kind of Joker. You know, there haven't been very many tellings of his origin, and I think at this point, the general consensus.
Glad they didn't do the vat of acid because that would have been stupid.
Yeah, I mean,
in this type, you know,
in this, no, it wouldn't work.
It wouldn't have worked. Yeah,
it wouldn't work. I mean, at this point, I think the general consensus is that the Joker is an entity that just happened spontaneously. He has no origin. It's not like he was a guy and then he just showed up. People have theories, but there is no answer. There's no one answer. Batman showed up, then he showed up, and then they just wreaked havoc on the city.
It's almost like light and darkness. Whoa.
Yeah. So I think we both liked it. I had it higher on my list at different times. But some other films kind of moved around. I don't think it's like amazing, but I think it was very good, and it makes sense that it was so successful. Really,
same. Yeah, I think I honestly it wasn't even. So what I did basically is I just wrote down a couple of the movies that stood out to me when I was looking up like what came out last year. I saw Joker twice in theaters, you know, so that's got to stand for something. And so I think everything we just talked about with the whole kind of cultural moment that it got caught up in, I think it deserves to make it into the top 10, even at the bottom end of it.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that's our number 10. So what's your number 9, Lucian?
My number 9 is another Warner Brothers picture. Little Warner Brothers picture, but a Warner Brothers picture that got wide release nonetheless. Motherless Brooklyn, Edward Norton's directorial I guess his latest effort. He's directed a couple of movies in the past, but this one was like a real passion project for him, and you can really tell. It's based on a book called Motherless Brooklyn that was set, and when it was wrote, I don't remember if it was written in the 90s or something, but he's been wanting to make this movie for 20 years. He's been wanting to make this movie, I think, right after American History X, I believe. He was trying to make this movie, and of course, nobody would make it. And what he did with it is that he turned it into a period piece. So he made it take place in the 40s or 50s. I don't remember, like thereabouts, basically. It's a story about, big kind of the city government and the corruption that goes on in there. It's basically Chinatown. Because he made it a period piece, he can't avoid the comparisons, right? So he turned it into Chinatown. But he plays this... he does a great Edward Norton, like classic staple performance in that he's playing a guy that has... Tourette's, I believe.
Yeah, I think it's Tourette's.
It's Edward Norton with some kind of mental illness, right? So right off the bat, like where it's one of those classic performances. And you can just tell, like, he's got a lot of the actors, he said, worked for like basically nothing. They did it as a favor to him. He got Willem Dafoe in there, Bruce Willis, Alec Baldwin. I mean, really, this cast is insane. Bobby Cannavale is in this, and he's terrific. And so he's basically, I'm not going to give too much away, but it's a film noir set in the 40s, based on this book. Basically, this guy is, has Tourette's. He's an outcast. He works for a detective agency, and then his boss, basically his father figure, Bruce Willis, gets killed in the very beginning of the movie, and then the rest is him kind of uncovering the plot of like what led up to that murder. And of course, it goes all the way to the city government and the planning of this and that, and it's Chinatown, but I think it was really, it's not the best movie ever made. Like I wouldn't recommend it to anyone for like to watch it for fun or anything. It's kind of slow, but it's deliberately slow because again, he was trying to make like a 40s period piece. Everybody, the way that he directed everybody was in that mode. He was just like, ham it up, like pretend like, like this is actually like a Howard Hawks movie or something. So he directed everybody that way. I think, again, the talent he brought to it was amazing. The music, I believe it was nominated for an Academy Award or a Golden Globe or one of those things. The music in this movie is the best music I've heard all year, bar none. The best score in any film. I forget the composer's name, but yeah. I like film noir. I like detective movies. I like kind of man in a room type things, a depressed individual that is like trying to solve things that are bigger than him. And I love Edward Norton. So Motherless Brooklyn made it to my number 9.
Very cool. Yeah, I watched that film too. It's a solid film. It is long, but yeah, there's some good performances, and the whole thing kind of it's like a longer version of Chinatown. set in New York. Yeah,
it's not great. Like again, I wouldn't give it like a 10 out of 10. Tell everybody you have to go see this movie, but for the mood that it set, I really liked it.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Okay, so my number 9 is Rian Johnson's Knives Out.
That was one of the ones. I was just like, I didn't see that one.
yeah. Knives Out's a great film. I got a chance to see it, and I saw it like they had an early preview, which was really fun.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they did this like really interesting thing where like, so they gave everyone this random like card or something, and then one person was like, the killer was supposed to be the thing.
Oh, that's
cool. If you were the killer, you got this special prize or something. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
It was very cool. It was a very smart thing to do. Very smart marketing ploy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this film was like very, very interesting. It was a very different new take on like the murder mystery film.
Right.
Because what he does with it is he kind of gives you he gives the game like pretty much up front.
Oh,
and he tells you like, okay, this is kind of what happened, but there's still a mystery because you sense that there's still a plot, and then you don't know where the plot is coming from, and that becomes the actual mystery. And then there's interwoven all this other social commentary stuff. I won't try and give away too much of the film. But that's the general gist of it. But yeah, it's really, really well written. I mean, when he really like puts himself to writing something, he is a great writer, and he's very good at taking a genre and then finding a new way to interact with the genre.
Yeah.
Sometimes, that pisses people off. I mean, he did that with Star Wars, and people wanted to kill him. Right?
Oh, it pisses me off every single time. Every single Rian Johnson film pisses me off. I hate his
pissed you off?
Yes, I hate Looper. I hate Brick. I hate Brothers Bloom, whatever the Brothers Grimm, whatever the fuck that movie is.
Brothers Grimm.
However, I can respect that he is a phenomenal writer. I don't have to like it. Yeah. I don't like it. I don't like that he takes a genre and he's just like, I'm artsy. I know what I'm doing. I get it. It's probably my fault as a brainlet. But I do admire that he can write this stuff. Like it's really impressive.
I mean, that is his thing. That is what he does.
Yeah,
and that's what he's done his whole career, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just hand him a genre and say, do something interesting with it, and that's exactly what he does. And it's going to be different. Sometimes you're going to be like, wait, what? Because sometimes people they like the tropes. They don't totally want to have their expectations subverted. But that's what he does. That is his forte.
Sure is.
In life.
Subvert those expectations, Johnson.
And that's what he did with Knives Out, 100%. Totally subverted.
But it seems to be like in a fun way, in an interesting way, not in the way that like he was doing it to piss you off, or not in the way that he was doing it to like it's a noir movie, but with high schoolers. And they speak like they would in the 40s, but they're all high schoolers. Like it doesn't seem to me like it's gimmicky in that way. Is that correct?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was gimmicky. It was a little meta because the main character,
I can do that.
The main character. So the person who dies, like he was a mystery writer, and so that creates this meta element to the story where the character is trying to piece together what to do as if it were a novel.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, like life doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
But the murder itself is not even really the mystery of the film. It's like,
right,
what happened? Who benefited from him dying? Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was the real question.
That's cool. So I got a real sense from this movie because I saw a lot of trailers for it leading up to it because back then we could go to movie theaters and they play trailers at movie theaters. But from I think I've seen like 3 or 4 different versions of that trailer, and not once did I understand what the hell was going on. I just saw a bunch of people come to a house, someone dies, and then the rest is like kind of ambiguous. And I thought that was really smart, and that also told me that this movie is probably like a real good mystery. Like they're not giving it away, which is cool.
Yeah, they don't give away what it's about.
Yeah.
And the cast is amazing. I mean, the cast is so good.
Jesus, dude. You put Don Johnson in a thing as an 80s schlock guy. Ooh. So
Yeah.
I got to watch this movie.
Yeah. Definitely would recommend Knives Out. So that's my number 9. So what's your number 8?
My number 8 is along the same lines as Motherless Brooklyn, in that, again, it was another Warner Brothers film that it got wide release, but it kind of just quietly came out at the end of the year. Not too much fanfare, couple Oscar noms. It's Clint Eastwood's Richard Jewell, which I think is unfortunate. I think that title is unfortunate. So the point of it is that the marketing was, you will know his name. Like, who is Richard Jewell? Well, it's based on a true story. He was just like a security guard, basically, who foiled a terrorist plot at some event.
It was the Olympics in Atlanta in the 90s. Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was the Olympics. I just felt like, Olympics in America didn't seem right to me, but that's what it was.
Yeah.
I saw this movie in theaters right when it came out as well. And I just think it wasn't marketed as heavily or as well as it should have, because I believe that this movie is extremely well made. It's another one that's like Clint Eastwood has kind of gone back to his like kind of Mystic River, $1 Million Baby essence a little bit with this. He's not quite at that level anymore, but he really brought it back. The reason that this made the list, though, honestly, is Kathy Bates. Kathy, I mean, I wept over her performance in this movie. Really, so she plays Richard Jewell's mother. So basically what happens is Richard Jewell foils this terrorist plot, and then the FBI becomes convinced, either because it's the only evidence they had or there's other powers at play, they really want to get Richard Jewell as the guy for the terrorist attack. So he's the guy who foiled it, but now they want to just pin him for it because it's easy and it's convenient. So they hire this kind of crazy character of a lawyer played by Sam Rockwell, who has been firing on all cylinders recently, 3 billboards, etc. And so it's just it takes you for a ride in a way that it's like, it's not a fun ride, it's an emotional ride, but it's got heart to it and it's got humor to it. And I really think this guy, Richard Jewell, deserves, the marketing was correct. He deserves to be known as a hero, but again, it's a bad title for a movie, I think.
Yeah. I'm not sure what the right title is. I remember there was the ESPN 30 for 30 that talked about this event. I mean, it's a huge deal. Like, this is a guy who got wrongfully painted as a terrorist.
He was going to go to prison for the rest of his life. Yeah. And again, it's because like they need a fall guy, right? Because if this guy did this thing and we have no idea who did it, and it's like, okay, well, are they going to do it again? Right.
Who was it? And I mean, in the 90s, like it wasn't after 9/11, but still, like the World Trade Center had been bombed before. By terrorists. Yeah. And I don't remember if this was before or after the Unabomber too. I think it was after. It was after, yeah.
Because they talk a lot about, they're like, the Unabomber was just a random guy. Like this could be, this could be that too. Again,
Yeah, I mean that was when they blew up the federal building. That was a huge deal. Yeah. That was a huge deal.
Yeah.
So like, if you have some random guy walking the street, that's not a good look for the FBI and law enforcement. Yeah. So
he fits the description. He's in his 30s or whatever. He lives at home with his mother. He has no kind of social life. He has no real interest other than guns. He really likes guns.
Yeah, so he's got a lot of guns. Yeah.
So he's like, all of these things are stacking up against him, and he's just like the sweetest guy the way he's depicted in this movie. So again, like really, really heart wrenching. This movie, I thought it was executed really well. That, and of course, I'm a Clint Eastwood fan, but I think more than any of the movies he's put out in the last 10 years, I can say that with confidence. This is definitely probably his best.
Yeah, I saw that when it came out in theaters. It's a very solid film. It's a great film. I think there was a lot of like political stuff too that came out with it.
There has to be, right?
There's always different agendas and shit. Unfortunately, and those films get swept up in those agendas when realistically it's like, they tried to fuck this guy over. Like, Straight
Again,
up, that's it.
Yeah, I think a lot of that, a lot of the marketing, a lot of the kind of talk about like, Clint Eastwood's movie has got to be political, this and that. I think if this movie had come out, like if HBO Max had been a thing, right, or if this movie had come out like on Hulu or Netflix or something, I think it probably would have done better. Because people love these like real story things on Netflix, right? So I feel like that probably, instead of putting it out in theaters during a season where there were already so many movies in theaters that people were trying to watch, I think it would have done better. But either way, I recommend it, and it's one of my favorite movies. Number 8.
Cool. Yeah. So my number 8 it's a film. It is a Brazilian film called Invisible Life. So this is a really interesting film. It's set in the 50s in Brazil. It's about these two sisters, and sort of fate separates the two of them. And they both struggle against pretty much society trying to put them in a box. One sister sort of wants to become a classically trained pianist, and the other sister, she's a little bit more bohemian. She gets into this relationship with this like Greek guy, and then she has a child out of wedlock, and that's, in this society, that's like the end of the world, basically.
As it often is, right?
Yeah. So so by fate, the two pretty much are not able to really see each other, just because of a few small things that happen in their life. And the film is about how their lives play out from those sequences of events. And it's just a really well shot. It's very well directed. It's just a beautiful sort of time, slice of life in this era. Brazil in the 1950s.
Wow.
And the performances are great. It's on Amazon, free.
Oh, cool.
So if anyone wants to watch it and they have that, I would definitely recommend it. I don't want to give away too much, but I watched it recently. It'd been on my list. I'd seen that it got really good reviews and ratings, so I wanted to give it a watch. I watched it probably like about 2 weeks ago, and I really, really, really liked it. I thought that it was really good. It was really, really good, and I was really impressed by it.
That's really cool. I mean, that you could watch, like you watched it 2 weeks ago and it made it like a shot up your list. That's gotta, that's pretty high endorsement.
Yeah, for sure. Especially in a year where it's very competitive, right? I mean, it definitely, there's a lot of films I feel like in this year that have an impact, or they're very good. But there's a certain slice of films that I think are like really, really, really stand out.
Yeah, and there's a lot of these movies that kind of get swept under the radar, especially like you said in a year that was so competitive.
Yeah.
Like even when I bring up something like Richard Jewell, which was a big studio film with massive talent attached, that gets put away. Motherless Brooklyn gets put away. A small Brazilian film is gonna go completely unnoticed.
Yeah, so it's gonna get completely unnoticed.
So I'm glad that you brought it to my attention, because again, I'm sure there's like 100 movies that came out last year that are like this that I haven't seen that I would probably love. So that's really cool.
I have like a list of what I would call honorable mentions, and it's like 10 films, I would say.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of good foreign indie films that came out in 2019 that are definitely worth a watch. And there's some I haven't even gotten to yet. I haven't seen. There was a Pedro Almodovar film, Pain and Glory. I haven't even watched that yet.
I saw that almost made my list, actually.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't watched that. There was another one that's like Baracao, which is another, I believe, Brazilian film that's gotten a lot of buzz. I haven't gotten a chance to watch that. So yeah, there's a ton of films. And then there's other films that are very critically well liked that I didn't really like, but they're still worth watching. So
of course. Yeah.
Ton of films.
Really cool.
Yeah, so Invisible Life is my number 8. So what's your number 7?
Number 7 has been talked about ad nauseum, so we don't have to get too far into it, but it's Marriage Story. I liked it. And the reason that I liked it, again, my list is not really based on quality at all. So like, this is not like a list of recommendations of like, you should watch all of these movies, because it's really eclectic. It's really weird. But it's just like, what did these movies do for me that like affected me, right?
Yes.
And what I really like about Marriage Story above all else is just writing. It's specifically good dialogue. I think Noah Baumbach is one of those guys who he nails it every single time. Like, you don't, maybe his movies are hit or miss. Maybe some of the plot stuff gets kind of lost in the sauce, but what he really always gets right for me is dialogue, and he gets that sense of like naturalistic of like just people having a real conversation as opposed to just people saying lines at each other. And of course, there's like the whole the money shot, the money scene in this movie, that argument in the apartment between the two of them. But the way that it's written and the way that they rehearsed it, the way it felt like I was in the room with them. Like I got that vibe when I was watching Moonlight a couple of years ago, just like I'm in the room where these things are happening. Like I shouldn't be here, kind of a thing. Like I feel like I'm just invading on these people's
You're a voyeur.
lives.
Yeah.
Just like I don't want to see this kid's cracked out mom like go wild on him. Just like I feel uncomfortable now. So this movie did a lot of that, but primarily I just really, really like good dialogue. I think good dialogue gets really lost. I mean, if you really pay attention to the dialogue in movies these days, it can be a little silly. It could be a little like we got to get the plot moving. So I thought the dialogue in this was really good. Obviously, it goes without saying the acting was superb. Although I do think you could have cast any other really good actors in this and it would have probably been the same movie. I don't think these two necessarily have the greatest chemistry of all time, but I think it's directed really well and it's written even better. So that's why I put it on my list. What did you think?
Of Marriage Story?
Yeah.
Oh, it's on my list.
Okay. Then we'll talk about it later then.
I liked it. I'll talk about it when I get to it in my list. But I definitely liked it. I liked it a lot. I really liked that movie.
Same. Yeah.
Okay.
Number 7.
Yeah. So my number 7 is the very much talked about Parasite.
Of course.
Yeah. Parasite. So I don't know if I really loved this film when I first watched it. I've sort of gone back to it and stuff and like seen people talk about it. There's no denying that this is a great film. I think
it sure is.
There's no denying, and it's a very well directed film. And again, this is another film sort of that has a message that kind of transcends boundaries. A lot of people connect with the idea of sort of this class struggle, and there's this film deals a lot with like the inescapability of certain being born into a certain structure, pretty much. And I think the thing that really was interesting about the film was the discourse around it, where people are saying, don't know anything about the film, just go into it blind.
Right.
And because he does do a couple of like turns.
Misdirects. Yeah.
Well, the way I would say it is that it's so one part is one genre, it then goes to another genre. So like the beginning is like it's pretty much like a heist film is the way I would put it. Then it becomes a horror film. Then it becomes like almost like a melodrama. And melodrama is sort of woven throughout. And I think for a lot of people that experience, like, that doesn't happen a lot in American films because people can't, like, filmmakers, I think, are sort of taught to have tone consistency.
Yeah.
And a lot of the
gear
time,
and just stick in that gear.
A lot of the time, I think American filmmakers are not able to get the tone switch and have it work. He really makes it work. Like when that film like goes from the heist film to the horror film, and I feel like there's one shot, the shot that's really like where this guy kind of comes up the stairs and you see his head. That sold it. And like people like, you're like, oh, okay, oh shit, and you get scared. And it's like he really sold that tone switch in a way that I think a lot of people hadn't experienced before, and it really resonated. But yeah, this is a extremely well directed film. I mean, he's a absolute master director, and when you study what he did, like the directing, sort of some of the choices he made that relate to the story, and the way that he laid out all these motifs in the script. The script is really well done. A lot of people compared it. It gets a lot of comparisons to Sunset Boulevard, actually, like basically two sort of tragic films with tragic characters. This film is a great film, and it's on my list. So
it's been written, like you said, it's been written about a lot. A lot of comparisons have been drummed up. Although I can't help but feel that a lot of that stuff was brought to the forefront because of the buzz. It's like a chicken and the egg thing. I feel like this movie is just as good. Like, it's just as good having been written about and deconstructed as much that as it would have been had it just been released and nobody saw it, right? Like this movie in a vacuum is really, really good.
Yes.
It didn't make my list. I'm gonna spoil it. It's not on my list. I don't look forward to that. It didn't make my list because while it is one of the best directed movies for sure, and I can recognize that, just the whole class struggle story thing, I think, even though it's done in a new way, like not in a Rian Johnson way, like subverted expectations. I mean, it kind of is, honestly. Like he kind of takes it, like you said, he just like he plays with it a lot. And
He does,
there's like a mile a minute blink and you'll miss it, like really, really smart digs at all kinds of like different social stuff in here, and just like the way that people talk to each other and stuff. But it just didn't quite make my list because it didn't have that impact on me the first time. I just saw it as like. I watched it wanting to see like the mechanics of it versus letting it kind of affect me. But I think the class struggle story didn't quite connect with me because I'd seen and heard so much about it at that point. But super movie. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, no, I felt very similarly, I think, to you when I first saw it because I didn't know what to expect, and the tone switching didn't like blow me away. Mm-hmm. Like I thought it was smart, like the way that it was like, oh, by the way, here's this totally different aspect.
Yeah.
And then you're like, what the fuck movie did I end up in?
Yeah, it's like a Jenga tower, right? He just keeps adding shit to it. And you're like, what? Why? What is happening?
Yeah. and you can see that it's going to collapse. Like this whole thing that the family has, this dream, is going to collapse. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. It was not my favorite experience of the year for sure. Like,
right.
If I was just going on experiences, Endgame would be higher.
Sure. Yeah.
Films like Doctor Sleep, which is not on my list, would be higher in terms of just a film experience. But yeah, as a film on its own merits, it's probably the film that will be the most talked about from this year.
Yeah.
Just period. And make of that what you will.
But, and again, as much as it's talked about, it's still worth watching because sometimes you can get into that mode. It's like, oh, Breaking Bad's the greatest series of all time, and then you kind of get apathetic to it, and you're just like, I'll get to it eventually. I think Parasite is in danger of being in that camp of just like, oh, you just movie's fucking amazing, but like honestly, it really kind of is. So just give it a watch.
Yeah. And so like to give an example, I don't know if you're familiar with the site Letterboxd.
Yes, actually, yeah.
So Letterboxd is like, I would say it's probably the second biggest film review and rating site. It's specifically for that. IMDb is probably the biggest, but IMDb is kind of it's like Amazon. It's just gone beyond.
Yeah.
Because now there's television, there's all this other shit. But
owned by Amazon.
Yeah, it is owned by Amazon. Yeah, but Letterboxd is just about film, and they have a sort of similar to IMDb Top 250. Parasite is number 1 on that list. So it is the highest rated film of all time.
Whoa.
By Letterboxd. Yes.
Whoa.
Yeah. That is crazy, right?
That is crazy. That is crazy.
Yeah. It is the number 1 film of all time. It is higher than The Godfather. It's higher than Seven Samurai. So that should tell you about the popularity. This film is very popular too. It's not just that it's like critics like it. General audiences like this film. Mm-hmm. So yeah,
it works on both wavelengths.
Yeah. So yeah, that's Parasite.
Sure is.
So what's your number 6?
Number 6, we're gonna take it all the way down to the mid tier here. It was Spider-Man: Far From Home. I love this movie for a couple of reasons. I really, really like Spider-Man. Spider-Man's my favorite superhero, just across the board. I've always loved all of his shit. I read some of his comics, not too much because I didn't read too many comics. But big fan of Spider-Man. And I think what this movie did is piggybacking off of Homecoming, which, if I'm honest, I think I like Homecoming better as like a better film than this one. But I like this this most recent attempt at doing Spider-Man on the big screen. I like that they're really, really marrying it with that high school kind of John Hughes vibe, which Spider-Man has always had. The whole conceit of Spider-Man is that he's a high schooler dealing with high school shit while also trying to be a superhero and getting roped in by all of these powers that are greater than him. You know, the Nick Furies, the Fantastic Fours, like they're all pulling him in different directions. And he's just trying to get the girl, or he's just trying to keep his grades up and not, you know, let Aunt May figure out. Like, it's really kind of juvenile, but I think with this movie, it really succeeds. I think in just kind of like Homecoming did. Again, it feels like a high school movie, and I love high school movies. It feels like one of those John Hughes movies, but it's a big, massive, hundreds of millions of dollars blockbuster, and I think it finds a balance right in the middle. It's the second film by John Watts, right? Doing. I think
so, yeah.
Yeah. So like
they put him out of somewhere, right?
Sure, but like it feels like everybody's comfortable. There was a bigger role for Martin Starr this time around and JB Smoove, right? And those two are funny as hell. They're the teachers, the chaperones, basically, of this field trip. And they're it's just funny. Like they just hook it. It's got a little bit of that, you know, Bueller thing going on, and I like it. So that's why it made it so high up the list, because it gave me that like nostalgic vibe of like those 80s high school movies, while also delivering the big explosions and the stupid Jake Gyllenhaal shit and all that stuff, which I loved. I loved all of it. Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, I'll watch any MCU film at this point, and I enjoy most of them. I don't know. I'm kind of a weirdo. Like one thing that really, I don't know. I'm just so weird. But like, what pissed me off was like, there's this whole thing about. He has this whole whole speech about, oh yeah, well there's a multiverse and we're Universe 616. Oh yeah. And they kind of use it as like they pull the rug. I don't know why, but that shit just fucking pisses me off, dude. Oh, like the Mandarin.
That shit pisses me off.
Man 3.
That shit pisses me off because because I'm like, no, motherfucker, this is Universe 616, and don't you fucking tell me it's not, because you based it on the Ultimate Universe, which is 616, motherfucker. So I don't know, like stuff like that kind of pisses me off. I don't know why. I just get caught up on that stuff.
I can tell you why. It's because you're aware of it and you are familiar with. You're a fan of the shit, I guess. My thing is
it's a direct attack. It's a direct attack. Is the
right. No, again, it feels like the shit with Ben Kingsley in Iron Man 3, right? It's just like, we're gonna set this up and then we're gonna whoop. Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. But to me, here's the thing. Here's the secret. Outside of the first couple of the initial like run of Spider-Man and like the first like couple seasons of the animated series, I don't pay attention to any of that stuff. So I thought the Universe 616 shit was just a nod. I didn't realize it was an attack, and so for that reason, the rest I was able to focus more on the rest of the movie.
Well, they do a great job. Like this is I forget, but there's a comic book run where some of the stuff happens, and they actually are able to create the panels from that comic when Mysterio is really messing with Spider-Man and he like sees the grave.
I saw that.
That stuff was amazing. That stuff was really, really visually incredible. And I'm really glad they got a chance to do that because Mysterio is a very interesting villain. Very interesting.
Yeah. Well, they found a way to bring him in without doing the actual, parallel universes bullshit and without getting like really into the stuff. Like, again, I remember one of the last things I saw from the original Spider-Man is just like Mysterio whisks Mary Jane away into like an alternate dimension. And then I was just like, why are there dimensions? I thought he was a high school kid. So like, it's very cool that they were able to weave that in at all and redo those, give a nod to those comic panels, I think, and everything. And it's impressive considering how grounded by comparison to the rest of the Marvel shit the MCU is.
I mean, especially because they are going even further. Like this next iteration of Marvel films is going.
We're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
Yeah.
It's going to get more cosmic and crazy. And it's hard to imagine being a high school. I mean, right. You're Spider-Man. You just fought in a massive war in New York where you're fighting freaking aliens and
None of that. No. The reason this made my list, it has nothing to do with it. In a vacuum, this is a high school movie with explosions and with this crazy guy who has this like crazy plot, right, to reveal Spider-Man's identity or whatever. That's why I like this movie, because if you start thinking about the MCU and all the comic book shit and the way that it ties into, yeah, I can see how that falls apart. But the reason that I put it on here is because as a standalone high school movie with superhero hijinks, I think it works.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, so my number 6 was Marriage Story.
There you go.
Yeah, so I had this a lot higher at different points. I really liked this film. I thought the acting was good. Like you said, the writing was really good.
Mm-hmm.
What I really liked too was that I felt like this film really, I don't know how much of it is true to like actual real life when people get divorced, but I felt like it really put it sort of, at least to me, presented the stakes and how dramatic it can be. You know, like when the main character, and he's like looking for a divorce lawyer, and it's like, okay, my retainer's 100,000 or this, it's that, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
And then he's choosing between I forget the one actor. It's like Ray Liotta and the other guy, and Ray Liotta's the
Alan Alda.
Yeah, and Alan
right?
Alda. Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's like who should I take, Ray Liotta or Alan Alda? You always take Ray Liotta, right?
Yeah.
So
the bull shark.
Yeah.
And
he's a fighter, and like another scene that's amazing is like it's Laura Dern and Ray Liotta are both the divorce lawyers, and they have this first like where they're together. One of the best scenes.
So
I love that scene so much.
Funny.
And they're like the two lawyers are going to war, and the two of them are like, they're like sort of sitting there all like,
the lawyers are playing at like a whole different level. Yeah.
The lawyers are, and it's their own war between each other.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because you know the two lawyers, they know each other, they fought each other.
Yeah.
But like the two people, it's destroying their relationship.
Yeah.
Because the lawyers are hired to dig up stuff about the other person.
Yep.
And use it against them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just this dredging of all the stuff in the relationship, and you just see it's just tearing them apart, and it's just so unhealthy, right? It's just like how can you like, first off, having to relive your worst moments in front of other people in a legal setting is terrible.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, there's all this other stuff. There's money involved. There's children involved. And all the stuff where like he had to. So the Adam Driver character, like their kid goes to LA, because the kid went to LA. Now, once they start the divorce, the kid will never leave LA. He lives in New York. She lives in LA, and now he has to move to LA in order to be around the kid to look good for the judge. It's just like, is this
crazy.
Divorce? This is insane. Who would get married if you think about this? Who would get married?
When you were talking about like, like I don't know how much this is based in real life. I think the characters in the film were right. He's a theater director, and she's like an aspiring actress or something.
Yeah, she's an actress who basically he kind of, he's not the best guy. He kind of took her in and was sort of, he had been directing her, and then he got with her and married her. But also, there's this scene where he talks about, oh, well, I was so big, I was on New York Magazine, I could have banged anyone I wanted. It's like, whoa, dude, like, okay.
Right. So that's the thing about this, is that like realistically, these two would probably not hire $100,000 lawyers, but I think it's supposed to be an analog to, Baumbach was going somewhere in his career, and he was divorcing Jennifer Jason Leigh, I think, and she was a big star. So the whole divorce lawyer thing and them knowing each other and doing this routinely is because, Hollywood lawyers probably do. I mean, not probably, they absolutely do this routinely, and they all know each other, and there's a whole thing, and they know how to snake at each other and stuff. And so I think that's what this was analogous to, was that marriage. At least that's what he said it was analogous to. But it's just kind of funny to me to think that like just this playwright who may or may not or have been the greatest theater director of all time, and this random actress would be at this scale. I thought that was kind of funny, but I do think the analog kind of works. The analogy works between that and the real life stories. So yeah, wild, crazy shit, crazy world.
Yeah, I mean,
I can't relate to it.
Yeah, I mean, it just makes you feel like, wow, marriage, is it worth it? I don't know. but that seems horrible.
Especially for people in the public eye or people who have influence over anything.
Well, just like the Johnny Depp stuff, right? Just think about the Johnny Depp, Amber Heard stuff. That stuff is insane. It is absolutely insane. Mm-hmm. And now we know way too much about them. Way too much. Like, I don't want to know about people shitting on the fucking bed, and I don't want to know about all this stuff.
Yeah.
But that's what happens when it's too big. People, it becomes public. It's
at what point, like, is being a public figure and just like, you know, everybody, there's always that argument of just like, well, if you're a public figure, then like there's going to be paparazzi, like you got to be okay with being spied on all the time. And it's just like, at what point, like, is there enough? Like, Jesus, like, I'm good. Like, I don't want to hear about, you know, Johnny Depp's fucking mental breakdown. Like, I'm cool.
I don't even know if like, if you've seen what happened with Chris Evans, like yesterday.
Oh no.
He posted a DP of himself on Instagram.
Why?
It was obviously an accident. He didn't do it on purpose. But he did that. He just did that yesterday. And then he trended on social media because he did it.
So stupid.
But if he's Chris Evans, the guy who lives in, you know, who's like fixing your yard, or like, you know, he's just like a school teacher. No one
gives a shit. Yeah, it's just kind of funny.
Yeah, but he's Chris Evans, freaking Captain America, and he accidentally posted DP on his Instagram page, and
that's funny. That's actually funny. Wow. It's crazy. It's a weird world, and I think that movie did a really good job of bringing us into it without like overwhelm. I mean, it does overwhelm us when it's supposed to overwhelm us, but it's not like, it's still fun and it's fun to follow.
Yeah. Crazy stuff, man.
Yeah.
The world we live in a crazy world. I don't know if there's any other way to put it.
I'm just waiting for the singularity, man. I'm waiting for it all to get like broken down, collapse, and then start again. This shit's over, man.
Yeah, it's a crazy ass world. Okay, so that's halfway point. So what is your number 5?
Number 5. We're in the top 5 now.
Top 5.
So yeah, we started at Joker and some of these other like more introspective kind of movies, and now we made it into the top 5, which should tell you that who I really am, right? So number 5 is John Wick Chapter 3, baby, Parabellum. Let's go. Love this film. So I love this film. Unlike Spider-Man, which I liked it disconnected from all of the shit that it's connected to. I just liked it on its own. I like John Wick more because of its connection to the previous 2 movies. And I think they've done a really, really, really interesting job of setting up that universe of assassins and, you know, the Continental and all that stuff, which was supposed to be its own Stars series, I believe. But that, I think, fell apart because of COVID.
Probably, yeah.
So they were going to blow up John Wick. John Wick Chapter 3 made it into the top 10 grossing list for 2019 for the US, which is crazy because if you look at the rest of the list, it's just Disney, and then like what, a couple, maybe like a Universal in there or Warner Brothers, but
maybe Joker, maybe I can't think of anything else.
But it's all
dominated by Disney.
Massive Disney bucks, Marvel shit. John Wick out of pure thin air. I liken John Wick to like the first Taken movie. It just came out of thin air. It was someone's idea somewhere. It was these guys who've been working together for 20 years and they were just like, and they did it and they executed at the highest level of the genre, which is what I really appreciate. So John Wick Chapter 3 picks up immediately after Chapter 2, and it is continuous. Like, it is a continuous story that you can follow. Or you cannot, and you can get high, or you can turn your brain off and you can just watch it for the gunshots and the explosions. The only reason this isn't higher on my list, because if for anyone who doesn't know, action movies and schlocky shit is like just what I live for, right? But this movie is polished. It has a level of polish to it, again, likened to the first Taken, that kind of came out of nowhere and blew everybody away. As like the polish to the choreography, to the fighting, to the gunfight, you know, the gun fu, as you would call it. Everything is really, really solid. It's not higher on my list because it made me realize that too much of a good thing when it comes to action movies is a thing. Because I think this movie just it goes on just a little bit too much. Like it's not too long, but there's just a little too much pew pew in it. As opposed to, I liked a lot like some of the universe building stuff they did in chapter 2. I thought worked better to break up the action sequences, whereas this movie is just go 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 go, which is what you would want, and they give you what you want, but it just feels like it's a little too much at certain points. But it's just this dream team of Keanu Reeves and Chad Stahelski. They know what they're doing, and they're gonna keep doing it. God damn it, because I thought this was gonna be the last one, and then they sequel bait at the end. So they brought Morpheus into it. They already had in the first John Wick. They had the actor who played the Keymaker from The Matrix. So this thing is just a massive like circle jerk reunion. Yeah. Chad Stahelski and David Leitch were his stunt coordinators in the Matrix films. In the Matrix. Like, they all know each other. It's great fun, and I don't want anyone to think that John Wick is like schlocky or cheap in any way, because it is very, very polished, very, very worth watching if you're into any kind of action films. And so it's number 5.
Yeah, it's some good stuff. I mean, it is just a really good action franchise. That's all there is to it. And they bring their A game, and they're really like building because like the I think it was Chad Stahelski did some reshoots for Birds of Prey.
Yes.
Too.
Yeah.
So he's like his own franchise basically, and it's just like, hey, does anyone want to hire me to do action?
Which is great. So I think these movies are really precious in that, as much as this can be precious in that it's not connected to any big franchise. I mean, it is its own franchise, but again, it's not connected to Disney. It's not connected to Marvel or DC or, any other kind of legacy franchise that Paramount wants to bring up out of the vault. Like this is its own thing. And I think it's really cool that it's breaking through, and it made it to the top 10, granted number 10, but it made it to the top 10 biggest grossing films. Yeah.
In 2019, a year where there was Avengers Endgame and Disney, it was a Disney-geddon. That is impressive.
It is impressive.
Disney just dominated, and even the trash that Disney put out made, freaking Lion King made $1.5 billion, right?
I don't remember if Dumbo made I think Dumbo was an actual failure.
I think, thank God, Dumbo flopped.
I think Dumbo flopped, but like, if I looked at that list and it's all, it's the Disney, it's the Elephant Graveyard from Lion King. It's just fucking Aladdin and all of this shit. Yeah.
Aladdin, Lion King. So Spider-Man is Sony, but it's an MCU film. Captain Marvel made $1 billion.
Yeah. Everything. Captain Marvel was one of those things where I was like, that came out a year ago? Yeah, that came out at least 3 years ago in my mind.
It came out in March, but it feels like it was, it feels like it was just like just like an add-on or something. It's like, oh, by the way, here's another movie.
You like Samuel Jackson, don't you? Put him in you remember him in the 90s movies?
Yeah. Remember him in that really good, remember him in what was it, Die Hard 3? Well, here he is again.
We CG'd his face and everything. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. Daddy, there's a white man on the street. Yeah, I seen one.
Oh, that's such a better movie than all these fucking Disney movies.
All of them, dude.
All right. So my number 5 film was a film that was also very, very well regarded, very talked about, very extremely well directed film, Portrait of a Lady on Fire. So I was lucky enough to actually see it in 2019. I don't know. I really kind of hated whoever the distributor was for this.
Oh, no.
Because they stupidly decided to suicide themselves and their own film. They decided, we're going to have it come out on Valentine's Day in 2020. Oops, well, you released it into a pandemic and no one got to see it in theaters.
Oh, man, that's a bummer.
Yeah, it's a huge bummer because it is legitimately one of the best, most well-directed films of the year. And I think it's up there with Parasite. It is a beautiful film. It's a well-directed film. It's just absolutely poetic and visually stunning. And the story is very heartwarming and also tragic. This feels like a film where I could imagine, I don't know what the story behind it was, but it felt like this had been in the making for years. Right? You can tell there's that level of detail, there's that level of craft, there's that level of care about the characters.
Of that that raw want to see this made.
Yes, and everything about the story feels so well done. You can just tell that the level of artistry with this film was at a different level. It is absolutely one of the best films of the year, and I think everyone should try and see it.
Wow. Yeah. You're absolutely right. Like the marketing for this just absolutely killed it, because I would have seen this movie. I would have seen this movie had I known when it came out. I didn't even know it came out. I knew it was in production or in limbo or something, but I missed it.
Yeah. And I've been hearing a lot about it, and I was like, I just really want to see it. I got lucky. I basically got a screener for it. And I was like, oh, they're going to release it in 2020. I think that's kind of a bad idea, because then people haven't seen it in the year it came out, and so then it would make lists in 2020 instead of 2019. Mm-hmm. But I just feel like when you got a good thing, just put it out there, because people are going to talk about it, and it makes my 2019 list. And that's what you really want with a film like this. You want people to talk about it, and you want it to find the audience of people, because this isn't really a film. I think unlike Parasite was a film, like we talked about this before. When I saw it out here in Oakland, like, the theater was packed. The first weekend, theater was packed.
We didn't mention it, but we absolutely, I don't remember the name of the production company, but whoever put out Parasite is making moves. They are doing a really good job at marketing this kind of foreign audience shit. Like, they knew exactly what they had, and they put it out exactly when they should have put it out, for awards and for other reasons. Like, if anything, that's the correct example, because I think I haven't seen this movie, but I get the feeling that if this was promoted and put out in a perfect world at the same level as Parasite, they could have probably been competing.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And the film was mismanaged big time. It wasn't even like on the list of Oscar, because the Oscars, they have basically for every country, they have like a film representative of it, and then those films can then compete for the best foreign film category. Portrait of a Lady on Fire wasn't even for France. It wasn't even there. It was this other film that I've also heard is good, La Miserable. But all that stuff has to do with basically, it sucks, but it has to do with money and the distributor and whoever. They are the ones who need to put this thing in front of people.
It's politicking.
It is. It's politicking, and they did a bad job, and they kind of, I think, underserved this film, which is a really, really, really good film.
Well, it's definitely up on my list now, because now I know that it's out, so I'll give it a watch.
Yeah, again, like, this is another film that's like, it's very popular with audiences. It's very popular with critics. It's an incredible film, and this is a film that people will be talking about for basically forever. I
hope so. I hope so. I hope it doesn't just get swept under the rug as like one of those kind of. I have a movie. It's not nearly like at this level, but I have a movie that similarly just kind of got thrown away and just like vomited out in 2019 because it was like mired in lawsuits and controversies and stuff. But like, I hope it doesn't just become one of those stories, right?
Yeah. But yeah, the distributors, they suck. They suck. They fucked that movie over.
Oh man.
C'est la vie. But that happens, right? Like that. Like, think of like a movie like The Shawshank Redemption. No one saw that in theaters, basically. Yeah. And then it played on TV, and then it was like,
that's a good point.
TV MVP. Like, you see it, and you never turn away from that.
Yeah. Do you think if this got like all of a sudden became, I mean, probably can't now, but if all of a sudden it became like a Hulu original or a Netflix film or something, like this would probably turn heads, right?
Yeah, if it was on Netflix, it would probably do very well. I'm sure it's on some big streaming service. It has to be, like, the property is too strong. But true. If it was like a Netflix original, holy shit, and Netflix money behind it. I
mean, if they can put out like a
man.
If they can put out the Charlie Kaufman movie, and they can they could absolutely do it.
Not only put out the Charlie Kaufman movie, but get people to talk about it, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah,
like, it's a thing. Like, people are really talking about that film, love it or hate it. It is a topic, and that means people are watching it. Yeah, and the fact that people are watching a Charlie Kaufman movie, I'm sure most people that might be their first. And
it's funny. Sucks, that's the funny thing is, like, it's not even his best film, but Netflix has that power of putting stuff in front of people. Yeah.
But now, just imagine if they had the rest of his catalog too. If they could say, "Oh, hey, so you saw that? Well, why don't you try watching John Malkovich or Eternal Sunshine?"
Yeah. Seriously.
Put you on this like mind fucked funnel
train. Yeah.
Just autoplay. It just autoplay to the next one.
I'm curious what the recommended is for Netflix if you type that in.
It's got to be something weird.
Yeah, but cool.
All right, yeah. So Portrait of a Lady on Fire. That's my number 5. So what's your number 4?
Well, not related at all, tangentially related at all, at best. But so we've started our descent, right? We've gone from it's only going to get worse from here. Sort of related to you mentioned being John Malkovich and those weird, just like bizarre kind of art bro 90s films. Spike Jonze. Tangentially related to Jeff Tremaine and Big Brother Magazine. Jeff Tremaine left Big Brother Magazine to go start Jackass. Jackass is a huge phenomenon. I grew up with Jackass. It shaped a huge part of my identity, for better or worse. Jeff Tremaine finally got to make a narrative film last year, and it came out on Netflix. It is called The Dirt. It is the Motley Crue movie on Netflix. That made it to my number 4. I adore this movie. Now, again, it is not a good movie by any stretch of the imagination. Although that depends. It depends how you see it. The critics didn't like it, but here's the thing: it's not that kind of movie. It's literally the way I would describe it is if the Jackass guy made a movie about a bunch of debaucherous degenerates, right? That were they just blew up. I love the idea of rock bands, especially in a time when records were selling, and the media machine works all day and night behind them, pushing these idiotic like 19-year-old kids, right? Like how fucking crazy is that in your life? And this movie captures that, and it's got it's got these like crazy approaches, because Jeff Tremaine like primarily makes documentary style movies. Like Bad Grandpa, for example, was his big kind of like it's staged pranks, but it has a narrative throughout. And Spike Jonze was actually responsible for that, because there's like a great story of like they were weeks out from production and Spike Jonze was shooting Her. Because Spike Jonze was in Bad Grandpa and he was an executive producer on it, because they worked together on everything Jackass related. So he went off. So he basically like set up Bad Grandpa. He went off to shoot Her, and then he came back to be able to shoot Bad Grandpa. And he was like, "All right, we're ready. What's the plan?" He's like, "Well, we got these pranks, and we got Knoxville. We got a 17-inch long ball sack. Like we're ready to go." And then he's like, "Yeah, but what about the narrative?" And they're like, "I don't know. He wants to bury his wife." And then you're just like, "No." So I think he really taught him a lot about that. And this movie, The Dirt, has a lot of like really interesting. Like really cool, just base level, like camera shots and things like that. Like they do a lot of kind of point of view stuff, GoPro stuff, and it really puts you into that razzle dazzle frazzle cocaine mindset of, again, just you take these young kids and the media machine props them up and they play these massive concerts and stuff. I just thought it's like the anti-biopic. It's the anti-Rocket Man and the anti-Bohemian Rhapsody, and it is fully just wallows in its degeneracy. There's like a scene where Ozzy Osbourne like snorts piss, right? Like it's great. It's fucking I love this shit. It's called The Dirt. It is dirty, and it like doesn't shy away from it. It just goes for it. And I thought, again, some of the acting, some of the story beats, they don't really hit. But as far as the style of it and just making you feel like human beings can do this stuff to themselves and come out the other side is pretty impressive. Yeah.
Interesting.
So that's why I like it. Just took me on a ride, man. And I love that sensibility. I love that, like, just we don't give a fuck. We're just gonna do it. We're gonna throw it at the wall. Like, we don't care. We're gonna, we're the guys who made Jackass and Wild Boys. We don't give a fuck. Yeah. It's cool. Yeah. So that's why I liked it. Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't know that that side of the Jackass people were still doing stuff.
Yeah, that was
interesting.
Them. Yeah, cool. That was I believe like a lot of like the camera guy who throws up in Jackass, right? That's kind of what he became known for. He's like a DP now, Yeah, no, like these guys are making movies now. Yeah.
That's good. That shows you in life you can start getting punched in the balls and then you become the DP of big film production. Yeah.
No, there's something there. There's something there, like that talent, because again, Spike Jonze, before he was before he was even making movies or music videos, he was working at Big Brother magazine, and that magazine was basically Jackass on paper. And it was just like, what crazy stunt can we do? Like, where can we put titties on page whatever to shock people? Like, that's what it was all about. Like, let's put dicks and titties in this magazine. And so it's crazy to me, and I love that they were able to take that exact same sensibility and turn it into a feature movie for Netflix about a big rock band, and it works. It really worked for me. So it gave me that like really crazy feeling. So I liked it.
Very cool. Wow. Very, very cool.
Yeah.
All right, so my number 4, speaking of stunts and crashes and stuff, is Ford versus Ferrari.
Sick.
Yeah, so this is a film I had heard a little bit about back in the day. I think the script was like really supposed to be well regarded, and this was a James Mangold film. Great cast.
How good is James Mangold these days, by the way?
He's really fucking good.
Holy shit, man.
So I feel like before this, he had done, what was it? He did Logan, basically. Mm-hmm. So he, and next, they're saying he's going to do the 5th Indiana Jones movie.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
At what point did Spielberg back out on that?
I think he backed out at the point, I don't think he didn't want to do number 4. And then Lucas,
fair enough, yeah.
So the other day I was watching this thing about it, and this was one of the greatest things I've ever seen. Was Steven Spielberg was talking about him talking to Lucas about what the 4th film would be about, and then Lucas was like, oh yeah, it's going to be about aliens and Roswell, and Spielberg's like, I don't know about that. I think that's a bad idea. And then Lucas comes back to him like, okay, yeah, it's not about aliens, it's about interstellar people. Or he used some kind of weird term. He did it. You know what? Steven Spielberg did exactly what you just did in the video.
Okay.
That was his reaction to what Lucas said. But then he made the movie.
Okay.
But then he made the movie. And so I think he's been sold out on it since the 3rd one, honestly. Even in that video, he said, yeah, that's why I came up with that shot at the end of the 3rd movie where they ride off into the sunset. He was like, that was it. I was done. Yeah. That's why I created that shot, because this is the end.
Yeah.
This is the end.
Yeah. He paid off his serials. He got to make the tributes that he wanted to make, and he was out. He was ready to move on with his life.
Yeah. But, again, it has to do with money, right? Like, they shoved a lot of money at people for that 4th movie.
Yeah.
Harrison Ford got like $25 million. Spielberg and Lucas and Kennedy, all these people, they got a lot of money. So that's why they did it, probably. But hopefully the 5th one, they'll, get a fresh start or something. I don't know. No Shia, no fucking jungle gym shit.
I think Shia, honestly, if Shia was in a better movie, I think he could have still been Indiana Jones Jr. Like, I think he would have, he could absolutely sell it to me. Yeah.
So Ford v Ferrari, this is a really good film. I saw this in Dolby, and oh my God, the sound mix in this film. Wow. And the fact that they really did all this stuff with the driving, all this is like practical. It is unbelievable what they do. And the story, I really find the story interesting because, the title is Ford v Ferrari. In Europe, it's actually called Le Mans 66.
Right. Which is what the movie's about, by the way.
What the movie's about. Yeah. So they create this whole thing where it's like Ford against, who's the guy who's the head of Ferrari, I forget his name. He is Ferrari.
Literally, yeah.
Ferrari.
Enzo Ferrari.
Enzo Ferrari, Enzo Ferrari. Yeah. And then they're creating this thing where it's like, oh, it's Enzo Ferrari, and then he fucks over the Ford because he has them come and like give him an offer, but then another Italian company gives him a better offer once they get the Ford offer. And he was just using the Americans to get more money. And so then it's like, oh, hey, Enzo Ferrari. And then they do all this stuff, and then the race happens, and then Enzo Ferrari tips the cap to them when they win.
Yeah, which is a huge moment.
It's like a huge moment.
Yeah.
And what you realize is like the real enemy, the real bad guy in the film is these bureaucrats at Ford who are going to end up destroying the fucking company, who have no vision. They don't care about anything. They're just a bunch of suits, and all they care about is money. They don't love cars or love what driving really means, you know?
There's something really cathartic about seeing, like, you set up this asshole character who is an asshole, but he has a lot of power, and like you just can't get rid of him. And there's something really cathartic about when that character gets like pissed on, like someone just pisses in his mouth. And there's like a scene, I don't remember who does it, but there's a scene where like he's like, I'm fucking Henry Ford, and the other guy's like, you're Henry Ford Jr.
Yeah,
like that's such a great moment. Yeah. Where you're like, oh,
yeah.
This movie has a lot of that.
Like they call him the Deuce or something like that.
The Deuce, yeah.
Oh, the Deuce, he's not really happy about what's happening with the. It's just so funny.
Yeah, and everyone's like scared of him for some reason.
Yeah. When he's just like he's a total kind of dweeb.
Idiot. Yeah,
he's kind of a dweeb.
At least the way he's portrayed in this movie. Now these are real people, so we don't know, but that's the way that they're portrayed.
But again, like these people, they did end up destroying Ford, the company.
Yeah.
So yeah.
The Le Mans thing is just a blip along the way of Ford destroying themselves, and it's really due to the guys that aren't in the title, right?
Yes.
The Matt Damon and the Christian Bale character.
Yeah. And the stuff with the Christian Bale character too, like it's sort of a tragic story, but
very.
Recently I did a review for our network for this movie First Man, which is about Neil Armstrong, basically a Neil Armstrong biopic. And that movie is just all about these people trying to go to space dying. And this is sort of a similar thing. These people who dedicate really their lives, they give their life and their intelligence and everything in order to create these cars that can do things that human beings never thought were possible.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible, and it's a credible story. And there's a lot of. It's just like one of those. This is like another classic Father's Day all-star gift.
Yeah,
give this to your dad. Your dad will love this movie.
Yeah, and I was gonna. So this movie was on my list at pretty much the entire time until the last minute when I just finalized it. Like this movie was all absolutely on my list, and it was gonna make it really high. I don't know why I took it off. Honestly, I fucking love this movie. It's not like a Parasite situation where I had legitimate reasons where I was just like, it didn't quite move me. Like I saw this movie twice. I love this movie. However, there's an element of just despite how just obscenely well directed it is with especially the Le Mans race that goes on for it's like an hour of the movie.
Yeah.
Logistically, it makes me weak. It makes me want to throw up. Just like getting all of those shots of all of those cars driving, and then editing it all together and the sound mixing, it's a feat. However, the movie itself it's a formula, right? Like you've seen this movie before. It's like you said, it's like a Father's Day gift.
Yeah.
It's a sports movie.
Right?
It's a sports movie. It's a biopic. Yeah. Rush, I think, came out not too long ago, right? It's kind of a similar thing.
Yeah, Rush is more about
an darker, but
yes, and it's also about this interpersonal. It's two people against each other, and their different personalities. Yeah. Whereas this is like a buddy movie, and the conflict is the bureaucrats. The bureaucrats are the bad guy. Like in that, I don't even know who really was the bad guy in that movie in Rush.
It was just they hated each other.
They sort of hated each other throughout, and then they figured out they had a mutual sort of understanding of each other.
Yeah,
that movie's very interesting actually too. That's a good comparison.
Yeah, I mean it's just the last thing because studios work based on previous. This movie would not have been made had it not been for other movies that were like it, right? So because of that. The story, the bits and bolts of it, of exactly how it's going to end, except for the one thing about the Christian Bale character, right? Which caught me off guard. But for the most part, it's pretty vanilla. But goddamn, what an achievement, right?
Well, I feel like the twist is the Enzo Ferrari tip of the cap, right? Because that's really the moment. Because Enzo Ferrari tips the cap, and then the Deuce just leaves.
Unless you know the story. Which
I didn't really know the story.
Okay, fair enough.
It's a very well-known story for sure. Because there's a documentary about it too that's also very famous.
Yeah. There's a lot. This story gets talked about a lot. It's shocking to me that it hasn't been made because we've been making biopics for 30, 40 years in this exact style. I mean, you could argue that Citizen Kane was the original one.
Yeah.
But
this feels like this should have been a Steve McQueen movie, right?
Exactly. Yeah. No, this feels like this could have come out at any point, right, in the last 50 years, and it never did.
Oh my God! Yeah, I'm almost kind of excited for the Steve McQueen version of this.
I know.
I feel like the one we got is pretty good. It's pretty good, especially with the director we got, right?
It is really good. Yeah. But you can see the Hollywood pieces fitting in. It's like, we gotta get Matt Damon, Christian Bale. These guys are huge. Hey, baby, let's go. You know, so that like turns me off like just a tiny percent.
Yeah. I mean, they definitely like the cast is great. The cast is excellent. Even the smaller people, you know, the guy who plays Ford, he's it.
It's Tracy Letts. He's a fucking legend. Yeah.
That guy's in everything.
Yeah.
He is an absolute legend. But then there's like the guy who plays Leo Coca. He's been in a bunch of stuff.
John Bernthal is in this. Yeah.
Who's the other guy? The guy, it's like Lucas something.
Yes. Josh Lucas.
Josh Lucas. Yeah, Josh Lucas is another bureaucrat. He's the real enemy.
Yeah.
Well, Josh Lucas, they tried to make him a leading guy, and then he was the lead in that movie Stealth. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie Stealth.
Hell yeah. Oh, dude, you're talking my language. I saw Stealth in theaters, dude.
I saw Stealth in theaters, too.
I love it.
Dude, I not only did I see it in theaters, I bought the fucking soundtrack to that movie.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. It had this one really great song from Incubus on it.
That's so funny. I love it.
But yeah, that was a mega flop, and that was it for him.
And then they try to make him a rom-com guy, too. You ever see Sweet Home Alabama with Reese Witherspoon?
They don't know what the fuck to do with this guy.
I have no idea. Yeah, there was a basketball movie with him where they put him in everything. They tried him in every genre, like in the Coach Carter years, right? They had him in everything.
It's like he's not a leading man. We put him in I mean, because if you think about it, like McConaughey had this kind of the same thing, right?
He did, yeah.
He was in horror movies in the 90s. Then he got kind of really big in the 90s too. Like he was in Contact. He was in a bunch of other kind of big films. Yeah, and then he just like went into. Then he did Sahara, and the Sahara destroyed his career.
But then they found his thing. I feel like True Detective is the thing that like they found his thing. Like this guy brought him back. He's actually an artist, and he's not just like you can't just like pigeonhole certain people, you know.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So that's my number 4.
I love it. I love Ferrari versus Ferrari. I love it. Yeah. I'm glad you brought it up because I'm glad that we got to talk about it because I felt bad that it wasn't on my list. So I'm glad.
That movie was 100% making my list. I watched that movie and I had a lot of fun, and I thought it was good and well directed too. Yeah, so
it really is. Yeah.
All right, cool. So what's your number 3?
Number 3. This is the movie that I was talking about earlier when we were talking about A Portrait of a Lady on Fire that people haven't heard of because it was mired in a bunch of shit, and then it kind of came out quietly, and the people who made it disowned it, and they didn't have final cut, and so it was just kind of a mess. But the movie's called The Professor and the Madman with Sean Penn and Mel Gibson, and this is part of Mel Gibson's, like, I guess you could call it his redemption arc, if there is such a thing, which there isn't. But I still think at the core, I mean, I don't care what anyone says. He is a fucking incredible filmmaker. Like he knows how to make movies. So this movie, he was going to direct this movie originally, and he was going to do this one like 10, 15 years ago, right after Apocalypto, I believe. This is going to be his next movie. It's a biopic. It's about basically, so Mel Gibson plays the professor he's a linguist. And his thing is just about writing the first ever dictionary. So that's kind of what the backdrop of the story is. But the guy who is kind of the inspiration and the driving force to him being able to write this dictionary is this guy, Sean Penn, who is the madman, right? And again, it's based on a true story. I don't remember the details, but basically something happens, and the movie doesn't reveal it, but something happens in Sean Penn's character's past that there's like a tragic thing. He ends up murdering somebody, and then he gets put in an insane asylum. And then when he gets, and this is in the 19th century. So when he gets put in the insane asylum, he fucking goes insane. And this movie does not shy away from like what a mental institution looks like in those years. It's gritty and graphic in that Mel Gibson way, again, in that Apocalypto Passion of the Christ era Mel Gibson way, right? So he was going to direct this, and then he gave it to his Apocalypto co-writer, I believe his name's Farad Safiniya, I think is. So either way, so he gave it to his partner, and they shot this movie in 2016, at the end of 2016 in Ireland. Yeah, so they went to Ireland. Mel Gibson's production company, Icon, they all went there. They shot it, and then whoever was their co-financer or whatever the fuck on the Ireland side ended up somehow gaining control of the picture. And they took basically the dispute was that they took 5 days of production away from them. And of course, Mel Gibson's made a couple movies before, and he was just like, we need those 5 days because like that's when we're shooting our crucial stuff. And the productions, the other producer said, no, you can't do that. So then they went to court. And so this movie was in court limbo for like 3 years. And then ultimately they settled, I believe in 2019 and early 2019, they settled. And, but again, they didn't have final cut and they didn't have all the control they wanted. But despite all of this, I still think that the story came out. And the reason this movie's on my list, as opposed to like The Dirt or John Wick or whatever, that had like the raw thrills of like, yes, I like this, I'm happy I get to see this, was just like emotionally, it was like the most devastating movie for me the whole year. Like I get goosebumps thinking about it. Sean Penn, I don't know why. I know Hollywood fucking hates Mel Gibson. I understand that. But Hacksaw Ridge did well. I know this movie did not get a traditional release. It didn't get released in theaters, or if it did, it was like really limited. So I know it didn't quite qualify for some of the award stuff, but Sean Penn in this movie is fucking devastating. Because again, he's a normal man that he gets thrown into this insane asylum, and you just watch him just degrade. It's a long movie. It's like 2 hours, and it's a little over 2 hours. And he starts to mutilate himself. I mean, it's really fucked up. But basically, this guy with all of the crazy stuff that's happening to him is what's feeding Mel Gibson's character to write this dictionary, because he has this genius that is discovered in him that he's able to like memorize all these words or whatever. So the two become pen pals, and then eventually they meet. And there's a whole, there's like a whole side story. The person that Sean Penn's character kills is Natalie Dormer's husband, and she's also in this movie. And so there's also this other arc of like this woman who has like 4 or 5 kids or whatever in like Victorian London, right, who has like not a pot to piss in. All of a sudden, this man comes out of nowhere and kills her husband because, reasons. And so then there's like a redemption arc, and he's trying to gain her trust and like really apologize to her. And it's just like really, really emotional, and it's really well done, despite the fact that, they didn't have final cut and the movie was just lost for 3 years. It was just in limbo. But again, and the thing is that, like Hollywood probably, I don't know how they would have liked this movie if it had come out like all according to plan, because they still don't like Mel Gibson.
They don't.
Which I understand, I guess. But I still think it's super underrated, and I'm positive that like not a lot of people have heard about it. But if you get a chance, you should check out The Professor and the Madman. It's really, really emotionally heavy. And if you haven't seen this movie, and if you think I'm insane and you think it's a piece of shit, that's fine too. But I really think there's something there that this movie could have been like, if this movie was released in the 90s, this could have won Oscars. I just think it was wrong place, way too late. Wrong time. Yeah.
Got
but like,
caught up in some shit. Yeah.
Yeah. But like, at least just to see it for the Sean Penn stuff. I mean, he goes to like Mystic River levels in this. He is devastating in this movie. Yeah.
I've heard of this film for sure, but I didn't know this backstory about it. I just, Mel Gibson, Sean Penn, that's what I knew about the film.
Sure.
Pretty much.
Well, and you know how it works, right? Like when you're like the production company that like inherits a movie like this, like we talked about this last week, I think, was just like, you're just going to put Mel Gibson, Sean Penn, you're just going to put that on the poster and just put it out there and like not give it any context. You're just going to sell it on the star power. Keanu Reeves is in your movie for 10 minutes because you made it in the 80s. Fuck it. It's a Keanu Reeves movie. Yeah. So it was advertised that way, but it was an honest effort that started as Mel Gibson's next big movie. And this is it just came out, 15 years too late, but I still think it's well worth a watch. And it made it to number 3 on my list. It like really emotionally affected me. It's a redemption story, and it's well told.
You know what, this film really sounds to me like in 5 maybe more years we're going to talk about one of the best new director's cuts.
Right. Yeah.
Does it sound like a film where they're just at some point they'll settle, they'll be like, okay, Mel, we'll allow you to create your cut, and if the film is really good, right? Like we could be talking about another great director's cut.
I hope they can pull that off, man. But again, I don't think it's ever going to happen because we don't want to see Mel Gibson's cut of anything because we don't like Mel Gibson. I think that's why it's not going to happen. But I wish it did, but I don't think it will.
You never know. I mean, look, Francis Ford Coppola, he's doing another cut of Godfather 3.
Yeah, I'm excited for that.
So there's going to be another cut of Rocky 4. This stuff is happening.
That's true. Yeah. No, that's cool. But
I feel like the director's cut it's like the toolbox of, promotion, right? You can just always say, hey, this is a new cut. And if there's sort of a genus around that property, people will kind of grab onto it. It's like an easy way to make money, really.
Yeah. I think you're right. I never thought about it that way. Yeah. Thank you. You've given me hope. Because I really thought...
But it's 5 years away. It's not...
It's 5 years away and it's on HBO Max, right?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Fair enough.
So, but yeah, I think it could happen, but yeah, it's not happening tomorrow.
No, it's not. It's absolutely not. But for what it is, for what it's worth, I think this movie's worth seeking out, and it's worth watching for the performances alone. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's definitely one that I haven't seen. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, give it a shot. Yeah.
All right. So my number 3, this was a very much talked about. A lot of people did not like this film. I liked it a lot the first time I saw it. I think I saw it in theaters maybe 3 times. Every time I saw it, there was someone else next to me falling asleep. But I always really liked this film. I even liked it more once I listened to the director's commentary, because it really made me understand exactly what the director was going for. Even though when I first saw it, I kind of got it, but once I listened to the commentary, I really got it, and I really liked the theme. So for me, number 3 is Ad Astra. I forget the director, but he did like Lost City of Z and some other films.
I know him as the guy, James Gray. Is that his name?
James Gray. Yeah,
yep. He's the guy who made The Yards, I believe. The Marky Mark, Charlize Theron, Joaquin Phoenix love triangle movie set in Boston or Philadelphia or some shit. One of those East Coast cities.
Interesting.
Really good drama. Like really Two Lovers, I think, also with Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah.
Joaquin Phoenix was this guy for a while. Really interesting, like kind of auteur, right?
Yes, and hearing him talk about it, he's definitely an auteur. Another thing, too, about this, the cinematography in this film is absolutely incredible. Mm-hmm. Even if you don't like the film, you think it's boring, you think it misses the mark. And so the guy who's a DP was the guy who did Interstellar. He's like, I feel like he's a guy who's emerged, really. Like, he's done a lot of stuff before, but this...
Is he Nolan's guy?
Well... I don't know if he's Nolan's guy. He might have done Inception. Hoyte van Hoytema is his name. He's like a Swiss guy.
There was because I think after Dark Knight Rises, Nolan split with his DP. It was Wally Pfister, and then he switched. Split, and then I think this is his new guy. Yeah,
he got Hoyte, but I don't think Hoyte did. I don't think he did Tenet.
Oh, really?
I think
okay.
I don't. Maybe I'll have to check. I'd have to look. I can look real quick. But this film,
you talk about it.
Really liked it. I really like this film. And this is like an interesting... So it's really like a sci-fi story that's trying to do something like Apocalypse Now. Is I think the best way to put it.
Yeah. For the record, I have seen this movie and I do like it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a character who he needs to go on a journey to find this person who is his dad.
Hoyte did shoot Tenet.
He did shoot Tenet. Okay. Yeah. He's a great DP. He is absolutely incredible DP.
He is, yeah.
And I feel like once he started working with Nolan, he's doing some incredible work. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so it's just the story, like the Brad Pitt character, he has to go find his dad, and there's this emotional journey as well. But really, to me, so this film, James Gray talked about, for him, the theme of this film was about what if human beings are actually alone in the universe? What does that mean? Right?
I got that. Right, yeah, I got that the first time I saw this movie. I was just like, Jesus, this is depressing.
Well, it is sort of, I think, so one of the things that really, there's a scene at the end, so he meets with his dad, and then his dad is fucking crazy, which he has to be because he's living by himself.
Yeah, which I think...
in space forever.
It's true, but it also hurts the movie a little bit, because if you've seen a space movie like this before, like, I don't know, fucking even Sunshine, like people who get... lost in space, they go crazy. Ooh, woo, Solaris, right? Like, it's part of the genre, and I know why he did it that way. But I think, for the average audience, it's probably just like,
they were never going to get it.
Yeah,
there's this incredible scene where, so Brad Pitt, by happenstance, has to go to Uranus by himself. He ends up accidentally having to kill all the crew that's on the ship. And he's by himself, and they do all these shots of him by himself. It is incredible. The acting is incredible.
Yeah.
Like there's scenes where he's hanging in the air, sleeping, and then he like wakes up, and he's doing all this stuff to show you how much time is passing. And I know people didn't get that. Yeah. But it is absolutely incredible directing and acting together, because you are seeing a human being going slowly crazy, and this is a person who has to fight that insanity, and he's trained to do it. He's a trained astronaut who is able to withstand the rigors of being in space, the isolation. He's able to, and also on top of that, there's all this stuff because he's going to find his dad, where he has a strong emotional connection with. And he's, the only reason why he was able to get there was because he kind of reached out to his dad when he was on Mars. This movie's crazy, but I absolutely love this film. There's so much to like about it for me. And so for me, like, I always find it interesting because this is a very artsy film, but I've, like you and me, we've probably seen a lot of films, right? We've seen a lot of films from other countries where you don't know what the hell is going on. It's totally inaccessible. This film felt very accessible to me, but was also doing the art thing. Like I was able to connect on a certain level, on an emotional level. I'm able to understand what the director's trying to get across. Yeah. But it's interesting seeing like the art, because this is really trying to be an artsy kind of film. It's more of a character film. It's not really a plot film. Correct. Some things happen with the plot, but they're just like, okay, that happens, but I don't know if I really care, because I had this long journey, this experience of consuming all these images and all this emotions that make me feel a certain way. And like the theme too, the way that he pays off the theme, where at the end, the Brad Pitt character, like he sees all the work that his dad did, all these pictures of space, and it's beautiful. But his dad couldn't see the beauty of all the work that he did because he's looking for something else, something that's not there. And that to me was really like, that's what the film's about. Is like, for human beings, what we have is each other. Yeah. We're not going to find some answer out in the universe. What we have is each other. And if you lose sight of that, you're going to lose sight of what it truly means to be a human being. So for me, I really, really, really love this film.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you. And I think, all of those themes hit and they make sense. And I think it's constructed very well. But goddamn, like that is not the right movie to put Brad Pitt in and to put it in theaters. He is, again, the acting is phenomenal. I mean, it all works. It all works together. But I think the way that this was a Paramount film, was it?
I think it was Fox Searchlight. Fox Searchlight. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Either way,
before they died. So this was actually a Disney film.
I hate it.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
No, well, I think Jojo Rabbit was one of their last ones too. But shit. What was I trying to say? It's just crazy. It's just, I don't know how this got to the level that it did. I don't know how he got Brad Pitt in it. I don't know how
Brad Pitt wanted to do this. He wanted to do it. Brad Pitt is why this happened.
And I think is why it also failed commercially, because it became as soon as Brad Pitt gets attached, it became a commercial thing. Brad Pitt does art movies sometimes, and this is a really, really fucking good art movie, but it's not it's not plot driven. Audiences, I'm not going to say all audiences are dumb, but like audiences that go to movie theaters and they see Brad Pitt, they want to see, like, they just want to keep the plot going, right? They just want to see like what's going to happen next. This is not that movie. If you go into this movie thinking it's a sci-fi movie, even it is a sci-fi movie, but it's not about the sci-fi. It's not about the physics. It's not going to give you this like, if we put the pen in here and we go through here, it's called the wormhole. Like, it doesn't do that. It doesn't do any of that stupid shit. It's really internal. This movie could have been not about space, and it could have been done in a different mode, right? And it would have worked the same way.
I think it needed to be about space. Like the aesthetic of the emptiness, of the aesthetic of what works about the film is the space stuff. I mean, the first shot of the film is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. It's him spinning in space, and then there's like it's like you see a flare. You see a flare of the sun, and I mean, there's a cinematography once he's at Uranus. Like the way that they depict what it looks like when you're out there that far, it's unbelievable. It's the cinematography. But that's what the film is about. That's why you go and see it. And if people don't appreciate that, then you're just not going to like the film, which is fine. Yeah. I don't think this film was ever like what the film they tried to make was never going to be commercially successful. It just wasn't going to be.
I just think they pushed it really, really hard to be a commercial thing. I saw ads for it all over the place. I saw billboards for it. I saw all kinds of things. And then I saw a lot of backlash from that. A lot of people reviewing this film, giving it a 1 star, saying boring, dull, like it sucks, but like you knew that was going to happen, right? Like the executives must have known.
Well, they were hoping to trick people.
You can't trick them.
They were no. Well, I think there's been times where there's been films that have been probably maybe not as boring, but like bad that have worked.
True.
Because of a marketing campaign that works. So when you have that product, like you just have to sell what you got, which is Brad Pitt. Yeah. Right? I mean, and those are two different things. Like the marketing campaign is different from the film. Like this film, what you need to do is like say, hey, best director, best cinematography, best special effects. Right. That's how you really want to try and sell this film.
Yeah.
And so, but if it doesn't get those nominations, you're kind of SOL.
Yeah.
Yeah, but other than that, you just got Brad Pitt, and so you got to say, "Hey, Brad Pitt, space, Brad Pitt, blah blah blah." Oh, look at this scene on the moon where they're being chased by people.
Right. Oh, drive by on the moon. Whoa.
There's like 2 scenes, and like the monkey scene. Like every time, I swear to God, every single time I watched that movie, someone was asleep. The fucking monkey, I swear to God, the fucking monkey came out, and they were like, "Oh!" Every single time I saw that movie, there was someone asleep in front of me, and that was their reaction every time. The monkey came out and they woke up.
That's so funny. I forgot about the monkey. Yeah, I think the monkey's the thing that like threw it over the edge for a lot of people. They're like, "What the fuck is this movie about?"
Dude, that monkey scene was great.
It was great.
That monkey scene was amazing because you're like, "What's going on?" It's just, and again, it just shows space is a place that is not meant for humans. It's dangerous. It's scary. It is foreign. It is the antithesis of everything that we're used to, and all kinds of stuff can go wrong, and you can easily die.
Yeah,
right.
Jesus, of course, yeah.
And sometimes they have some fucking baboons on a damn spaceship, and then they get loose and they start killing everybody.
Yeah, yeah. It's a wild movie. I agree with everything you said. I think it's a really good movie. I just cannot understand how this got pushed as heavily as it did, knowing that this movie is it's got at least 20 minutes of silence in it, right?
Yeah,
like
there's
silence.
There's some long, it wouldn't say silent, there's a score in there too, but it is him by himself in space slowly going somewhere to like Uranus or something like that. It was
sandwiched between like what, fucking Gemini Man and some other stupid ass movies, right?
But like, and a normal audience is never going to truly like understand this film, I don't think.
And that's why I'm sad about it.
Like there's a scene in this film where he's on Mars and he has to get onto the ship where he's tunneling underwater. He's like, it is beautiful. It is one of the most beautifully shot things I've ever seen. Like that sequence, he's under the water, and the way they depict him under the water is like brilliant. It is so brilliant. Again, Hoyte van Hoytema, one of the greatest working DPs right now. And then he comes out of this orange haze.
Yeah,
and you see him. It is unbelievable. It is some of the best cinematography I have ever seen in my life. And I watch a shit ton of movies. But for a lot of people, like that doesn't do it for them. And I get it. And you have to like, I'm someone like, I really think there needs to be some level where people need to understand what they're getting into with certain films.
I completely agree.
Because when you understand what you're getting into, then you get in the right mood. If you expect something else, so like if you go into Blade Runner and you expect Star Wars, you're going to be very unhappy.
I know a lot of people in my personal life that I went to see Blade Runner with, and they thought it was fucking boring and long, which it is, but they thought it was going to be Star Wars.
Yeah, and I felt that the first time I saw it too. I thought it was going to be Star Wars, but I watched it again. I watched it a couple more times, and like I don't know. I think people have a hard time understanding things that are non-narrative, like the beauty of certain things that are non-narrative, like the opening scene of Blade Runner, one of the greatest opening scenes of all time, visually. It is just a pure visual masterpiece. Right. But if you're someone who's expecting story, right? So like contrast that with like the beginning of, let's say, Indiana Jones, like Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Sure.
Raiders of the Lost Ark, there's this mystery. It's this guy in silhouette. He uses a bullwhip. Then he runs away from a rolling boulder. All that is something that we can feel, right? We feel the tension. A guy has a gun. Someone stops him. Our hero stops him. Our hero is like evading arrows and stuff. All of that is something I can understand. But,
those are things that are happening. You're saying the hero does this, the hero does this. Yeah.
When I see the beginning of Blade Runner, it's an eye.
Yeah.
It's fire. It's set. It's these like this. I mean, when you use the final cut and the score and the sound, holy fucking shit.
Oh yeah.
Holy fucking shit. Yeah. But I think for a lot of people, they can't understand. They don't know what they're looking for. They don't know what they're trying to feel. Right.
Correct. Yeah.
And Ad Astra is right in that realm. It is a different thing than the normal narrative structure.
And again, I don't think it helps. Like the Blade Runner example is great because I know a lot of people who I talk to about Blade Runner, and I can't stop like talking about how much I fucking love Blade Runner, right? Ridley Scott's my favorite director. But there's a lot of people, like a lot of personal friends that are like, yeah, whatever, boring, whatever. But I don't think it helps that Harrison Ford is attached to that. I don't think it helps that Indiana Jones, the guy that is running from the boulder, is now doing another movie. Or, I mean, the timing of that was different, but you know what I'm saying, like in hindsight. And so I don't think Brad Pitt being in this helps, especially in the same year when he's in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, right? To me. So I think from that aspect, like I do think there needs to be some kind of guide or some kind of thing to say like, hey, over here, this is not what the marketing says it is. Okay. Just so you know, go into it, relax. All right. Be a little, be a little open with yourself, you know? I think that would go a long way, but I'm glad this movie exists. I'm glad you brought it up. I'm glad we talked about it. I'm glad it exists.
Yeah, I think this is the fatal flaw of like how films are made, right? We have for whatever reason, there's this idea that stars make films successful. When that's not totally, and also directors make films successful. When that's not really the case. But there's just that model. They say, like with Blade Runner, right? This director, we like this director, and we have got this huge star, Harrison Ford. Let's make it. Yeah. And then it's this freaking contemplative, meditative sci-fi film, and you're like, what?
Straight up, like, neo-noir, like, okay.
Yeah. And again, like the executives were just like what you were saying. Like they're like the normal person. They're like, oh shit, we wanted Star Wars. We didn't get Star Wars, so let's get a new ending. Get some footage from what was it? From The Shining.
From The Shining, yeah.
And shoot another. I've never seen that in my life, by the way. I've never seen the theatrical cut in my life.
Oh, dude, it's
never in my life.
The one with the narration. Have you seen the one with the narration? Oh, it's so funny.
I've seen the director's cut and the final cut. I've not seen anything else.
There's literally a scene where he walks into the police chief's office and he says something like, something skin jobs, right? And then the voiceover comes on. He's like, skin jobs is a term for androids that look like humans. Back in in another time, he would have used the N-word, right? Like that's in the narration. Yes, they make that comparison in the narration, and I'm just like, holy fucking shit.
And I bring that up because those two films I feel like are like cousins, Ad Astra and Blade Runner, because a lot of the same stuff. Why does Ad Astra have all this voiceover? I'm very sure someone was like, no one understands what's going on. There's scenes where he's 10 minutes and nothing's going on. Let's add a voiceover.
Yeah.
And they just did it. I don't know if there'll be another version without it. I think the voiceover is fine in this.
I think it's fine.
It's okay. Yeah. But that's why it's in this movie, right? Probably. Because they felt like people didn't understand it. People wouldn't understand 10 minutes of Brad Pitt floating in a spaceship.
Right. Yeah, but anyway. I'm glad you brought it up. I like this movie a lot.
All right, so moving on.
Yeah.
So
shifting gears.
Yeah, shifting gears. What's your number two?
So neither of us have brought up this movie yet, so I'm assuming it's number two or number one for both of us, right? And I've been flip-flopping between number two and number one, and ultimately I decided number two is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Once again, Brad Pitt, Quentin Tarantino. We don't have to talk about it a lot because you probably already know what it is. But crucially, and kind of tied to the Ad Astra thing, I think this is a different movie for Tarantino, and I think it's a different movie for mainstream audiences. Certainly, every Tarantino movie is a different movie for mainstream audiences, but a lot of the times they have shit going on. Like when Hateful Eight came out and it doesn't have anything happening, it's just people talking for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Like that turned a lot of people off. Obviously, I loved it because I love that style. I love his dialogue. Again, I love good dialogue. It's like catnip to me. Like Marriage Story really scratched that itch. Like when Tarantino's not around, there's a couple directors that I go to, like writer directors that do dialogue real well. So, but I think this movie's not plot driven at all. That's weird. Ad Astra's not plot driven. Why did that not work? I think what this is, though, is that it puts you in a time and place, and it puts you, first of all, with the tippest, toppest, A-listest cast you could ever possibly conceive.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? The only thing it doesn't have is just like, teen heartthrobs or like YA actors in it. But as far as like the heavy hitters, like they're all in here. Burt Reynolds was going to be in this fucking movie, right? So
yeah, before he died, right?
Before he read, he was at some of the rehearsals, but like, you put all these people together, you put Tarantino dialogue in it. I think it's interesting that it worked and it made as much money as it did, considering it's not very plot driven. But I think it's just hanging out with these characters for 2.5 hours is what it is. You're hanging out with Leonardo DiCaprio, like a cracked out manic version of him from the 60s. I just think it worked for a lot of people. I think a lot of people are okay to just get high and watch this and just relax, as opposed to watch something like Ad Astra, which really challenges them. You know what I'm saying?
It does. It makes you have to think about what's going on. It doesn't
challenge you at all. It's got like Bruce Lee getting thrown around. Like it's got a lot of stupid shit. It's got a lot of it's like tied down by a lot of cultural stuff. That it like immediately it welcomes you into. It's like, oh yes, the Manson family. Oh yes, 60s music. Oh yeah, there's a lot of really good music in this. It's just a really good. I think it's a different film for Tarantino. I really do. It's not like Inglourious Bastards or Django or anything he's done recently. It's kind of closer to Hateful Eight, but that was specific. I'm just glad that it worked, and I'm glad that audiences liked it. And the reason it's my number 2 is because I just love Tarantino as much as that makes me a cliche as any other guy who likes movies or wants to make movies. But I just think his dialogue is fucking absolutely superb. And just being able to hang out with these guys for 2.5 hours, hell yeah. Give me 2.5 hours more of it.
It's a Hollywood fairy tale is really what it is, I think.
Yeah.
It's like writing history in a way that, because, again, he's a person, he loves Hollywood. He loves the film
more
history.
Than I think, honestly, anyone else who's breathing. Like when you watch, I've listened to podcasts and interviews with him leading up to this movie. He's the right guy to make this movie. Like he knows, he lives and breathes this stuff. He knows people's names off the top of his head in the way that I feel like I know people's names that were working in the 90s or 80s, right? Because that's kind of my analog to his stuff from the 60s, right? So yeah,
totally. And yeah, it's a solid film. I always kind of wished that, so like this film does sort of a wish fulfillment in the ending of rewriting of history, which we all kind of expected right after Inglourious Bastards, that the way he did that, which is a fucking brilliant film.
And and I just didn't think he was going to give me 2 hours of Sharon Tate and like glorifying her and then just like do something shocking at the end. It just didn't feel like it was going to head that way.
My only thing was I really would have wanted to see Manson get killed. I wanted to see like him fucking show up or something or some kind of shit. Because that would have really made me feel good about it.
Got
it. And that's the thing with with Inglourious Bastards, he kills Hitler.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
and that was like fuck yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, and in Django, like. He fucking blows.
He blows up the entire fucking plantation.
He blows up the fucking plantation.
It's so cathartic. He sets it to Tupac. It's so like I get it.
And I just didn't feel like that. And then at the end, he does the fucking meme face, like he does this meme face, and then they do the theme song, and he rides off with the girl. That just was so much more satisfying than what we got here. He basically creates a punchline out of it. He says, "Oh yeah, they came in. He said I'm the devil or some stupid shit like that." It's funny, but like, kill him because he was still around even in your universe. He's still around and he could still tell people to go kill someone else. Kill him.
That's definitely, now that you brought that up, like that's definitely a choice. And I'm trying to figure out, like, I wonder why he didn't go all the way with it.
Well, I think it makes sense realistically because Manson did not get involved, right? He just told people to kill people.
True.
That was his MO.
Yeah.
Again, he could have created a different character so that happened, but that would have been more satisfying for me.
Yeah, fair enough. To me, Manson felt more like a presence, which is, I think, what he was and what he was supposed to feel like. So I didn't really mind that at all because he's not in the movie that much. But he's ominous. Like people talk about him, and then that one scene where he shows up at their house, like it's fucking creepy. And I think that's what it was supposed to be, more than just like overtly physical with him. But yeah, I think it does. I can see the faults. I mean, it does drag on a little too long. Some scenes are a little too slow for like no payoff and for no reason. But I think that last scene, especially with the flamethrower, that was cathartic enough for me.
The flamethrower was fucking awesome.
That was good enough for me. Like from that Nazi movie that he made.
Yeah,
right?
Dude, all the sub movies in this film are
amazing,
unbelievable.
Right?
Like the thing when he was on FBI, that was fucking awesome, dude.
Yeah.
I would watch that TV show. I would watch that episode.
And
100%.
Yeah, you said, like, you mentioned the Django meme face. Like, there's plenty of meme faces in this. Like when they're watching the FBI episode, like you've seen the meme now.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Leonardo DiCaprio just like, like. So there is that in it, but like something about it just like not as. I think I get it. Like it's not as amped, I guess is a word for it, but nevertheless, like I just love hanging out with these two characters, and I think he did a good job with it. I really like the weird subplot, like that Nazi movie. Oh my god, that was so good. Die, you Nazi bastard! Just kill them all, like because it's all of us would kind of want to do this fantasy fulfillment of like, what if I could have Brad Pitt in like a Dirty Dozen or some shit like that, right? Yes, exactly.
And Tarantino's doing that. He's doing that in real time, and it's so awesome to see that. Like he gets these A-list guys, like, hey, come with me.
He
can do whatever the fuck he wants. Like, hey,
come
Al
with Pacino in this fucking movie.
Al Pacino's in the movie. And we didn't even talk about too. There's that they did that. There's a couple things. Remember, like, there's Leo dancing with like the girls.
Yeah.
That's just like so fun. It's just like
it is.
I love this. Like it comes from a love of that time, right? You have to love that time period to even want to create something like this. Because like for me, this is foreign. Like I wasn't around at the time. I didn't know that this was a thing.
I think maybe I identify with it a little bit more because I wasn't born in the U.S. So a lot of this stuff, like I grew up like America as a culture to me was the movies, and the movies were all kind of stemming from this same type of stuff. So I did see a lot of like, I grew up with a lot of 60s movies and not a lot of 60s movies, but like that sensibility, and that of course got transferred over into like 80s movies and 90s movies. So like, I kind of get where he's coming from that. Like if there was a way to remember a Nazi movie from the 50s or 40s, that's how I would want to remember it, as Leonardo DiCaprio going, die, you Nazi bastards. So I think that's what this movie succeeds at the most, is just like, if I could remember a time where I wasn't there, right? If I could remember a piece of media that was there, like I would want it to be the fucking Timothy Olyphant, like Western movie, right? Like I would want it to be that movie. So I think that's what it is. It is wish fulfillment, 100%. Yeah. Yeah.
And even like Leo playing the lead in what was that movie, The Great Escape? Like, just again, it's just this like, all of us have thought of that, like fan casting. Like, what if we did? Mm-hmm. What if we did The Great Escape today? Who would it be? Oh, it'd be Leo and blah blah blah. And like, he actually did this, and it's just that's what's really, I think, good about that film. Yeah. And like the way he recreated Hollywood was incredible.
Oh, amazing. Incredible. Every time I go to Hollywood Boulevard, I'm like, how the fuck? Oh, seriously. I'm just like, how did he do it? Because it's like a tracking shot right from the side of the car, and it's really long, and you get to see the whole fucking strip, and you're like, whoa. They really, like, the production design worked overtime for this.
They did. And it's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, and so that was your number 2.
That was my number 2, yeah.
All right, so my number 2 is, again, another great DP director collaboration, 1917.
Hey, there it is.
Sam Mendes, Roger Deakins, one-shot film. It's an incredible film. And again, it's editing tricks. Even back in the day with Rope, same thing. Editing tricks.
Of course, it's all editing tricks. But it works though.
Yeah, it works. Yeah, this film, like, I just think the cinematography is incredible and the story is good. And so you put those two things together, like the scene where there's like the bombed out buildings and there's like flares going above. Oh my god!
Yeah.
It's like that's like a whole different level of cinematography, and only Roderick Deakins is creating that type of imagery. Mm-hmm. He is so incredible. Of an artist.
We were talking about the Blade Runner, like the smoke in the sky, like. He came up with it before the sky went on fire, right? And it looks exactly the same.
It looks exactly the same. Like you watch Blade Runner 2049, and that's what has happened in real life, basically. Yeah, which is crazy to think about. Yeah.
So I didn't think about it that that Deakins aesthetic of just like the things going off in the sky is really cool.
Yeah, and then there's that whole sequence, like, so he's in the bombed out city, and the flares are going, and he's running, and then there's like this building on fire. Just an absolutely incredible sequence. Yeah. Absolutely incredible. And this stuff is not easy. For it to look and feel cinematic while also doing it in one take. That's why, and they're both masters at their craft. I was lucky enough so a friend of mine, we saw this together in San Francisco before it released for like the San Francisco, I think it's like the Film Independent or something like that. And Mendes was there, Deakins was there. Yeah, the writer was there, and they talked about the film afterward. It was a really great experience.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, Deakins is I can tell he's a amazing person, because all of them left, all those other people left, and he stayed, and some people fucking rushed the stage and were talking to him, shaking his hand. I should have rushed the stage. I really should have. Wow. Especially now, considering getting near another human being.
You're never gonna get another, especially a high profile human being. Forget about it for like 2-3 years. Not happening.
Hi, right? Nice to meet you.
Exactly.
Never gonna happen. Like, sorry, buddy. Because you can't even shake someone's hand. Like, now we're talking about getting rid of the handshake in general, which is probably a good idea. Yeah. But he seems like such a cool guy, and absolutely, like, probably the greatest cinematographer of all time. And we just look at the body of work he's done. He's incredible. And every time he's doing a film with a big director, I have to watch it. And was not disappointed by the work that him and Sam Mendes put in this film.
No. Like you said, it was like it's on a whole different level of just technical expertise and execution. It's insane. Yeah, I was gonna put it on my list. It didn't make my list because I didn't have that same experience watching it. I was just. This is gonna sound like I'm talking bad about the movie, but I'm really not. But I think going into it, I felt a little bit jaded because I saw it in like February or something. So like I was a little jaded at this is the most amazing cinematography of all time, and it's like I expected it to be, and it was, and it met those expectations, but it didn't exceed them. Because I knew like it had been talked up so much. It was just like this is the greatest fucking thing you'll ever see, and then I watched it, and I was like, yeah, it kind of was cool. Yeah.
If you expect too much of it, this is not like
it doesn't, in my opinion, like it doesn't really supplement. Like the story is great and it is a human story, but it doesn't like supplement it. It's not at the same level as the technical stuff.
It's not Saving Private Ryan.
It's not, and that's the thing. Like this movie is not even trying to be that. This movie is like really just trying to be a technical showpiece on top of it, like above everything else. So
he's also just trying to tell a simple story about like what it was like to fight in that war, right? It's about this guy. Like he's trying to get a message to someone else.
Yeah.
To stop a battle from happening. Yeah. And even in the end, the guy that he meets says, hey, tomorrow they're going to tell us to attack again. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of almost fleeting, and it's almost like, did it really matter?
Yeah.
But
and so much happens along the way too. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I really like the film. Oh, and the score too. There are some moments in this film where the score is absolutely incredible. Like that, like I was talking about that scene where it goes from the window to him in the bombed out city. That score, that one cue, that one song is absolutely incredible.
And
Absolutely incredible.
when he gets to the platoon or whatever at the end with that where they're all singing by the trees, very emotional scene.
Dude, that song.
Yeah.
And what's funny too is like they never released that song for a long time. They finally released it, like
good.
the actual version that was in.
Okay.
And like everyone's like, "Oh my god, I have to find like that guy who sang Wayfaring Stranger." And yeah, and because it's like it's beautiful. It's almost it's almost like, did he die or something? Right? Like you don't know what happened at that moment, and it's ethereal and angelic, and like
it's smart. It's a, you can tell again, it's a smart director, like knowing that like after all of this like really like high like very nervous kind of action, you know, you get to that scene and it's like it's just a song and it's just a couple guys singing and it's really cathartic. Like it's a good choice, and you can tell like the people who made this movie are really fucking smart.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the film, and yeah, I watched it a lot in theaters. I probably watched it like 4 times, all in Dolby. Just an incredible experience. Just an incredible experience with the sound and that type of screen and everything. Great film.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we got there. We're finally at number 1.
2 hours in, baby. We're finally at number 1. Here we go.
I have a feeling. I'm just gonna say now. I have a feeling we both have the same number 1. But
you think so?
It's possible.
It's possible. It's entirely possible. Go real quick. A preface to this because we talked about how you saw 1917 with Deakins was there and Sam Mendes was there. When I went to see my number 1 movie, I saw it at the Egyptian Theater, and they were hyping up a session that was coming up where they were going to show Joker with Todd Phillips and Robert De Niro were going to be there in person to answer questions afterwards. And I was gonna go to that, and then I was like, I'm in fucking LA. I can see this shit anytime. And then the pandemic happened. So I just wanted to get that story in there because I'm pissed off that I didn't get to see fucking Robert De Niro talk. You
got too jaded on your LA life.
A little
bit, for granted.
A little bit at that point, I've been working, with audiences, right? So I've been like on all these sets and all these shows, and I was just like, this is Hollywood. I was gonna, not at that time, but like I ended up working the Oscars like the night after, and I was just like, it's cool, whatever, fuck Hollywood, baby. Let's go. But big mistake. So I wanted to say that. But that night where that was announced, I saw The Irishman at the Egyptian Theater in Hollywood, and that's my number 1 film. And again, a lot has been said about it. A lot has been written about it. You can argue it any which way you want. You can say it's too long. You can say it's too slow. You can say the acting doesn't hold up. You can say the CG doesn't hold up. You can say the fucking old man movements don't match up to the faces because they don't. And it's really jarring and terrible. But all of that aside, it is my number 1 movie because it is a miracle of a movie, in my opinion. Again, as somebody who grew up watching movies and thinking that movies are America, like this is the culture, and because that's what I thought. I thought it was all not necessarily it was all like Italian mobsters or anything, but it was like that style. It was like, New York City is seedy underbelly, drug dealers, this and that, people getting whacked. So it is a payoff in many ways. It works on many levels. I don't think the movie itself. It tells a great story, and it's edited and shot and whatever. I mean, fucking Thelma Schoonmaker is still out there cutting movies, cutting a 4-hour Scorsese movie. Really impressive stuff. But I think what it is a send-off to this type of movie. Not necessarily the gangster genre as a whole, but just like the Scorsese gangster movie. Like, I don't think there's going to be another one quite like this, because there was a concerned effort to get Harvey Keitel in this, to get Robert De Niro in this, to get Al Pacino in this, to get Joe Pesci in this, which are all, again, you can say they're all dinosaurs. They're all fucking octogenarians or septuagenarians, and they move clunky. And why is this great? Why is this movie so long? And why do we care about these old fucks who have been making movies for 40 years? But I care, and Martin Scorsese cared, and I think it came together really well. And again, I think it's just... It's in the mode of Goodfellas and Casino. Like those can all be seen together back to back, and they work. Yeah. And yeah, I don't know what else to really say. I have a feeling that you have stuff to say as well, and we can discuss. Yeah. But for me personally, it was just, you talk about wish fulfillment. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was wish fulfillment for a thing that I'd never experienced or grown up with. This was wish fulfillment for all of those times that I watched, Goodfellas on repeat, and I watched, Bronx Tale, and all of these other 90s gangster movies, or those 80s get like Once Upon a Time in America. Like all of these movies have culminated for me in The Irishman as this last big powwow, you know. And there's a couple, you know, there's a couple fresh blood in here too. There's Bobby Cannavale is just like really showing his stuff. He's worked with Scorsese before. Jesse Plemons is in this, and he's fucking great and awkward as usual. But he's good. He's good in these types of roles. Yeah, and so that was it. I mean, Irishman really did it for me. It was my number one movie.
What's his name's in it too? The comedian,
Ray Romano.
Ray Romano. He's good.
He's a great.
He's good.
He's Italian. He's from New York, and he absolutely plays it. Like I don't even know if he was acting. Like it's just fucking perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is my number one too.
There we go.
I saw it in the theater. I saw it in Walnut Creek. It was really funny. There's this one moment where they reference Walnut Creek in the movie.
Oh, that's right. I remember. Yeah.
And it was like, it was very fun. But I feel like this film, I can understand why people maybe have some reservations about it. It is long, and it does this thing where it kind of does like a double. So it's like a flashback of a flashback. You know what I'm saying? Like it starts with him old, and then he talks about a time he was on a road trip, and then in that road trip, they're talking about a time when they were younger.
Yeah.
And so that already gets you like, wait, what?
Yeah.
But when it unravels all that plot, what you realize is that road trip is this super important moment where he had to do this thing, where he had to kill somebody.
Yeah.
Extremely important.
Yeah.
And that relates to, and what's so brilliant about the film is that and I think the reason why you're right, this is sort of like the end of that gangster movie. Mm-hmm. This film is about legacy. This film is about what are the end results of the things that you do and where that takes you. So for Frank Sheeran, he did all these things. He was part of all these extremely important moments in American history around all these extremely powerful and important people. But in the end, he's at an old folks' home. No one knows who he is. Right. No one even knows who the people he was around were.
Mm-hmm. That was such a great touch. Yeah.
That was such a brilliant. It's like, who was that? You don't know who that is?
It's fucking Jimmy Hoffa. And Jimmy Hoffa is like, eh?
And it's I don't know who Jimmy Hoffa really is. I get it. Yeah. Not on the same level as someone his age.
Because I guarantee you, if 10 years from now you talk to a kid and you show him, let's say, you show him Al Pacino and Serpico, he'd be like, what the fuck is that? Why do I care?
Oh, and Serpico, they would never understand. No.
They would never know. Or, I'm just saying, like, as an example, like you would show them one of these guys, you would show them Frank Vincent or something, or you show them Harvey Keitel and they'd be like, who cares?
Yeah.
But back in the day, these guys were operating at a level like 70s cinema that was just like really breaking ground. Yeah.
Yeah. And I really liked how that came around in the end, that's the theme of this film, because all he wants is to be with his daughter, and his daughter sees him as basically a horrible and corrupt person who got this person she actually liked, Jimmy Hoffa, killed. And she like has basically zero lines in the film other than like there's this one scene where she like pretty much accuses him of doing it. And that's the end of her relationship with him. I just like, and that last shot. Holy shit!
Yes, that last shot. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought up like the theme of it, right? The I lost my train of thought, but the whole kind of like legacy thing, right? Because to me, the whole meta narrative was working for me the whole time of just like these guys working together and making these movies for all these years, and what really is it for? And so that last shot was just Robert De Niro in a fucking wheelchair. Slowly panning out of that door, just like, is anyone going to remember this stuff? Is this worth anything? Does anyone care? Is this important? Like, I think it asks some really cool questions.
Yeah, totally. And the other parts of the film too, like there's the typical Scorsese craft.
Exactly.
Beautiful moments. There, Another one of my favorites is like when he's choosing a gun to use to do a killing. Yeah. So funny, so well written, so well edited. It's brilliant.
Yeah, that's a Scorseseism, right? It's like, you want to take the 22 because that's not going to kill him. So the shotgun's going to make too much of a mess.
It's too much noise. Yeah, I want to scare him, but I don't want to blow away, the missus next to him. So I gotta, but that gun, the 15, too small. That's a lady's gun. You don't use that. Absolutely brilliant. And that scene where he shoots the guy in the diner, that shit was intense.
It's a single take. It's like that classic Scorsese, just like car comes around, goes in, shoots the guy, comes out, gets back in the car, leaves. It was really cool.
The killings in this movie are done particularly gruesomely, and I mean there definitely feels like there's and this is written by Steven Zalian, a very 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 brilliant writer. He wrote
San Francisco State alum.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I mean he's one of the greats. He's one of the greatest ever to do it. I just recently watched his miniseries The Night Of, another very interesting.
I love that series. Yes.
Yeah, that's brilliant. He's a brilliant writer, and again, the writing on this, I feel like Zalian and I think William Monahan, there's these guys that they just do stuff on a really high level. They don't produce a lot because The Irishman, I've heard about this film since 2007.
Same. Yeah, I've been following it since high school, basically. Yeah,
this thing has been in the works for a long time, and guys like that, they're like, we're gonna do this. It's gonna cost this. We're doing it at this level. Yeah. And that's just what it is. Either you're on board or you're not. Yeah. But they are great artists, and they create amazing, compelling, deep art that I think transcends. I mean, this is something where I feel like I could watch it. I mean, I'm a guy in my 30s, but for some reason, I always kind of think about my legacy, and I think about what I'm doing and what it means if I'm really using my time correctly. And this really connected for me, where it's like, I don't have regrets yet, but I know the feeling of having that has to be so powerful for someone. And if you really understand what it means as a human being to see the end coming very quickly, like there's a scene where he picks out his casket.
Yeah.
He goes casket shopping by himself because there's no one else.
Yeah.
Everyone else is dead. He's hanging out with all these gangsters. They're all dead, or they're all, there's nothing, like he's an artifact of a time that no one really cares about anymore.
Yeah.
And he's stuck by himself. That is scary.
Yeah.
And if people understand, like, that's a real thing that all of us face. Are you going to be Frank Sheeran by yourself? Can't even close the door because you're afraid some person is going to come for revenge on you? That's, and a lot of people, they live that life from this universe, right? These gangsters.
Yeah. Again, I'm glad you're bringing up all these things, because like I can see how as like a 20-year-old, this movie gets put up on Netflix and you're just like, it's a bunch of old fucks. Why do I care? That's the point of it, I think. And I think it's really important that a bunch of old people made this movie, because you can feel like in those scenes of like if you think about Frank Sheeran's story, and he intersection with JFK, with the Bay of Pigs, he like armed the Bay of Pigs invasion. Like he killed Jimmy fucking Hoffa. Like he intersects with all of these historical things, but in the end, the movie's asking the question is like, that's all stuff that like happens. Like, does this really matter? And is anyone going to remember the individuals who perpetrated this stuff? And this in that same way, I think the meta narrative works, where like, these are the guys, or maybe this is me putting it on the movie, but these are the guys that were making these landmark films in the 70s, they were in The Godfather and making The Deer Hunter, and they were making these things. And these are the same guys again, making this movie pretty much at the end of their life, is how it's framed. And it's like, it's asking the same question, is like, is anyone going to remember, or is that just part of history? And then cinema's going to move forward with those contributions built into it. Is anyone going to actually care? Yeah. Will
anyone really remember them, or will they just be sort of like the way we feel about like someone like Buster Keaton or like Charlie Chaplin?
Sure. Yeah. Like we know that great speech that he did, in that movie, but what else do we really know about Charlie Chaplin's life, or what do we know about the other movies that he did? Like we're going to remember You Talking to Me, but we probably, at some point we're not going to know where that's from. It's just a thing that people say. Yeah,
it's just a meme. Or even like, that's a good. I mean, a lot of these films from the 20s now are becoming 100 years old.
Shit.
And so again, like those people are artifacts.
Yeah.
Like Buster Keaton is an artifact. I mean, all this stuff, like we can't really have a true connection with it anymore because it's so far gone. We live in a completely different universe than them.
Yeah.
But they did such amazing stuff to create the world that we know, the art that we know. But do we really have a connection with them anymore?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like everyone who does like musical theater knows Fred Astaire, but like other than that, is that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But
it's pretty heavy.
Yeah,
It works.
stuff. I absolutely loved the film the first time I saw it. I loved all the craft. But once you really see it unraveling what they're trying to say and do, I have
to say, there's so much to be said about seeing this movie with an audience. We both saw it with an audience, and at least here in LA at the Egyptian Theater, like the people who were there, like they knew what the hell they were in for, and they were laughing and they were clapping. And the first time when Jimmy Hoffa calls Frank Sheeran, you know, and he's like, "I heard you paint houses," like when you hear Al Pacino, the fucking audience erupted. It's a cool feeling that like we get to have this kind of last hurrah for these old fucks that have made so many movies that we've enjoyed over the years.
This is the culmination of all these great films. Like, finally, because they've never had a Scorsese, De Niro, Pacino movie. This is it. Yeah. This is it.
Yeah, and I'm glad. Like, maybe if those stars from the 20s got to make something like this in the 50s or 60s, we would have at least that for some context of how to remember them. I'm glad that they got to make this movie because, at least in a historical sense, you can trace everything that leads up to this movie with these guys.
And it is so good, again, that there is a film kind of like that. So Charlie Chaplin in 1951, he did a film called Limelight. I think it's the last great film he ever did. He's in it, Keaton's in it, and a couple other people, and they play his vaudeville. Yeah, and it's really about passing the torch. He's a old aging vaudeville star, and there's this new girl who's a new star, and they're kind of, he's passing the torch to her, and both of them are in it. And Keaton and Chaplin are great in the movie, and and it feels like the last great film that the two of them really did.
That's cool. I love to hear stories like that.
Yeah. I guess that's all we have to say on The Irishman. Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, we could talk about.
We could talk a lot about it.
We could talk a lot about it, but like the way that it was released and distributed and stuff like that. But like, I think it was a success. I think Netflix said it was a success for them. Again, I have a lot of personal friends who I tell them about Blade Runner and how much I love it, and they're like, it's kind of boring. I told them about The Irishman, and I don't think any of them watched it because, again, they're about the same age as me, maybe a little bit younger. But yeah, they just didn't care. They just like, Robert De Niro. Like, they cared more about Robert De Niro seeing him in The Joker than they would in this movie. So
for sure,
I think just not culturally relevant for them.
There are certain films you have to meet a person at a right time and place.
Yeah.
There's a lot of films like that. You have to be in the right mood. You have to be in the right state of mind.
Exactly.
Even. And if any of those things are off, sometimes it won't work. I know there are films for me. Like I saw, like just as a random example, Aguirre, The Wrath of God, when I was probably like 18 or something, and I didn't really get it. But what's funny though is like there are definitely things I feel I need to watch that again. I actually haven't seen it since then, but there are still images that stick in my head. I remember that horse being on that fucking raft, floating out into nowhere. Yeah. Which is one, and then there's like another scene where he like looks into the camera and he's like totally crazy. I remember those things, which is the point of the film, actually. So the film worked on me, but I wasn't in the right mood to really consume what that film was about. Right. And I feel like The Irishman is just like that. Like you have to understand it's long.
Yeah.
This is a really big, drawn out film, and it's trying to do something that, like if you're 17, can you really connect with this film?
Not at all.
Totally.
I mean, maybe, yeah. I mean, you can have fun with it.
But not a lot.
Yeah, and like, scene by scene basis of like, shit, they're throwing cabs into the river. That's cool.
Yeah.
But like, no, I get it, and I'm glad that. Yeah, I think if anything else, like that's one of the big takeaways we took from doing this whole list, like with the Ad Astra discussion and everything, is just that, some movies they're marketed as like this is the greatest thing of all time. You have to go watch it. And then sometimes that reality is just like not the expectation doesn't really meet the reality. Yeah. And I think there does need to be a little bit more of a concerted effort. I think Irishman did an okay job of explaining like this is a Martin Scorsese movie with old fucks in it. Like you're probably not going to be into it if you're not into it, as opposed to like, you put up billboards of Brad Pitt like a few months after Once Upon a Time comes out. So yeah, I don't know. That's all I have to say about it. I love it.
Cool. So real quick, I think I just want to mention a few honorable mentions that I didn't put on my list, but that I think were definitely worth watching. I have a lot, but I'll try and keep it short as possible. And if you have some too, you can share them. So definitely Avengers Endgame. I mean, Avengers Endgame was, I don't think a perfect film, but I've never had a better in-theater experience than the first time I watched Avengers Endgame ever in my entire life, being alive as a human, watching movies.
Wow, cool.
And from watching Jurassic Park when I was 5 to The Dark Knight to, the first Avengers Endgame is the greatest experience of all time.
Cool.
Like when the portals moment happened, just like, mean, it was almost like a religious experience. Is the only way I could really describe it. And my whole thing, I could go into a whole long story about. I got super lucky. So like I was going in Oakland, so it was probably my ticket showtime was probably like 3:00 or something. So I got there at like noon, right when they opened. And I talked to some guy. I was like, "Hey, when are people going to start lining up?" And I swear to God, this is what the guy said. He said, "Lining up? People aren't going to line up. Just come whenever." I was like, "Are you serious?" I was like, "Yeah. Are you sure? There's not going to be a line." Yeah. Just come whenever. Okay. So then I show up, and of course there's a line, right?
Yeah.
It's Avengers Endgame the first day.
Obviously.
And then so I walk up to the guy, and I'm like, "There's a line." He's like, "Oh, well, yeah, my bad. So you can just come on right in." So I was the first guy in the theater at my showing.
Oh, that's cool.
So I got to sit right in the middle.
Holy shit!
Get the best seat in the house.
I got a real shitty seat for that movie the first time. I saw it in IMAX. It was cool. It was a religious experience. Let me tell you. Again, as someone who doesn't read up and pay attention to any of the comic book extended universe stuff, or just the universe stuff at all, being there with the people who were and the people who were dressed up and not necessarily dressed up, but who fucking lived and breathed this shit. It was a really cool experience.
Yeah, I mean, just all this stuff. They there's a lot of stuff in that movie that kind of goes different directions. Yeah, but when they come out of the portals, when the whole MCU shows up and people are showing up, and then fucking Spider-Man shows up, and people are going crazy. Yeah, crazy when Spider-Man shows up, and then everyone's there, and then fucking Cap gets.
You knew that was gonna happen. No shit. That scene was always gonna happen, but it was still.
The way they did it was so good. Mm-hmm. The way they did it, they really there's a lot of ways you can do it where they just show up, right? They're fighting, and then Spider-Man came down, but to have it that dramatic. Mm-hmm. That sort of showcasey, that really comic booky. That is a comic book kind of thing. You could see that in the panels. I can imagine the panels seeing panel, Spider-Man, all these people. Yeah.
One of the people that I saw it with that was a friend of a friend, he after the movie, he went off. He couldn't contain himself. He went off. He was just so that shot, remember that shot when these people fly in? That's from this issue number whatever here. That's totally. From that. So they totally did. They totally paid it off. Yeah.
Oh, it feels so. There's so many moments. The funeral feels like a comic book panel just put into a film. Totally. True. Totally. The way that they panned across all these different people. Yeah. So Endgame, and there's a reason again why it became the highest grossing film of all time. So
there's a reason they put it back in theaters a second time so they can beat that fucking record. Yes, I will not let Disney slide for that shit. They've accomplished a lot with the MCU, but they're still scum of the earth, and they are.
Disney's evil, and they're trying to take over the world.
Great movie.
My other, Toy Story 4, I really did like that movie, actually, even though it is kind of a sort of tacked on. But I just feel like they're such great filmmakers, such great storytellers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't.
The story really worked. Booksmart was another one. I don't know if you've seen that one. I really liked it.
It was one of those movies when I was scrolling through the list. I was like, I fucking wish I would have seen that one.
Yeah. That one's pretty good. What's her name? Directed it. I forget her name. Olivia Wilde. Yeah. Very good job, and she's moving up. She's gonna do more stuff directing wise.
Her name is on my brain because she was in Richard Jewell.
Yeah. So there's another foreign film, and then we danced. So this is a sort of. It's about I forget where they're from, but it's some kind of European country, and they're dancers, and it's sort of this coming of age LGBT story. It's really well done.
Oh, cool.
There's a movie Waves. That was another good sort of indie movie.
Yeah, I've heard about that one.
Yeah, that one was good. Dolomite Is My Name. That was really good. The Gentleman.
Wait, Dolomite came out last year?
Dolomite came out last year.
Holy shit, dude.
Yeah, that was another one from the Netflix trove. Us was really good. That was Jordan Peele's second directed film. I feel like the directing was better. The story was a little muddled, but I felt like the direction is improving. And he really, I felt like, sort of put his stamp in that film more so than the first one.
Yeah.
Let me see what Hidden Life. So this was another film from what's his name? I forget.
It sounds so familiar.
Let me look up.
Really familiar.
Let me look. I forget the name of the director. Hold on. Terrence Malick. So this was a Terrence Malick film.
Got it.
Yeah. So this was a Terrence. It's very long. It's like 3 hours long.
Yep.
And it is a Terrence. It is a Terrence Malick film. But like once you start getting to the points that are good, it's good.
Cool.
It's really good. Let me see. Yeah, I really like Dr. Sleep. That was the sequel to The Shining. I thought that he did really well with that. The Last Black Man in San Francisco. I finally saw that this year. That was a good film. I really like that film.
Cool.
And again, like that's all like SF Bay Area stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really cool. Like the guy who's the lead who wrote it too. Like he's a Bay Area guy. Like he still lives out here. Like
that's sick.
You know,
yeah, that was another one that I regret that I missed it.
Yeah, I do too. I ended up seeing it later. Little Women was good. That was the Greta Gerwig film. Jojo Rabbit was really, really good. Really great script.
Jojo Rabbit is my honorable mention as well. Yeah.
And The Lighthouse was another good one. Lighthouse was fucking weird, but
I wish I could have seen that in theaters or something.
Yeah, and Uncut Gems too. I didn't really like Uncut Gems. It just didn't do it for me.
Ooh, that was so close to being my number 10.
I can understand how people would like it. For sure. I think it's a good film for what it is. But like, I don't know, something kind of,
No, there are things.
It's supposed to irritate you, right?
Yes. No, there are exactly. There are things that I hate about this movie. Like hate, capital H. Like they just annoy the fuck out of me. But I think that is the point. And I think you did a good job. Yeah. And again, it's got a little bit of that New York gangsta. Hey, Avi, hey, put 20,000 on the Mets, like or whatever.
One of my favorite moments is like he's walking, he sees this guy, and he's like wearing some kind of like, some more Jewish stuff. And he's like, oh, hey, so you're a Jew today?
Yeah.
That killed me. Like, everyone's busting each other's balls and like,
exactly.
They're all just like living on the edge, totally, scummy. Right?
Yeah. The approach was like very unique and weird, and that parts of it pissed me off. But the story itself, I really, really connected with because I really like these degenerate characters. I really fucking love them.
So degenerate. Like if I was thinking if you show that to someone who's addicted to gambling, will they get it or will they just be like, yeah, I'm gonna die like that? I really wonder.
Funny story about that. I was talking about last year with one of my coworkers at the audience company, and we were talking about like, oh, have you seen Parasite? Have you seen this and that? And then I said, I told him, I was like, I just recently saw Uncut Gems, and I really, really fucking liked it. And he was like, oof. He's like, no, I can't. No, I don't even want to talk about it. And I was like, that bad, huh? And he was like, no, like I used to have a problem with gambling. Like, it ruined like one of my marriages. He's just like, fucking, I walked out of that movie. I can't watch it. It's too real. I can't watch it. It's just like physically affected me, and I was just like, whoa.
Yeah, it's real. Like
something.
That's the thing. 100%. They got it. Like that type of. There are people like him.
That like neurotic, just fucking. Yeah,
brilliant film. I guess two others I would mention. The Farewell. That was a good film. I didn't really like it, but I thought it was very good, very well directed, very well written. And another one that I didn't like that got a lot of critical buzz was the Souvenir. I don't know if you've heard of that film.
I have heard about it.
Yeah, made Barack Obama's list of top 10 films of the year. But it is very artsy. It is a very artsy indie film about this, like, she's like an artist in London or somewhere in the UK.
A24, I see.
A24. She has this relationship with this sort of older mentor, rich guy, and it's not good for her. I wasn't in love with it, but critics love that movie. And Barack Obama loves the movie, apparently. So
it seems kind of weird and up my alley. I guess I have a couple honorable mentions. Not really though. Like you've covered most of them, and we've covered most of them throughout the list. The ones that didn't make my list, we already talked about. Jojo Rabbit, I just want to give another shout out to. That is just like, again, when it comes to writing funny dialogue and just a well written movie, I really appreciate that. I think it's more well written than it is anything else, and it's directed really well too. Actually,
Taika's amazing.
Scarlett Johansson is just. What a blowout year it was for her, and she got absolutely nothing for it.
Yeah.
But really good stuff. I really liked Bombshell. I think it's like the story is not anything new. It's not anything. It's not told in a overly interesting way. It's not trying to do it. It's not like Vice where like they had an approach and it got like super weird with it. But I think it's competent and it's very entertaining. And then it turns into very depressing. So yeah, I like Bombshell. Similarly, there was a movie, The Assistant. Did that come out this year or last year?
Ooh, I'm not sure.
I liked The Assistant more because it's pared back. It's indie, but it's the same exact concept. It's about an assistant, a secretary, right, to a creeper, and he creeps on her. And but it's more subdued. So I think those are the only ones I can think of off the top of my head. We covered everything else.
Cool. All right. Well, 2.5 hours of 2019.
Jesus. It was good though. It was good. 2.5 hours to not be in 2020 is a good time.
Yeah. And I mean, there was a lot of great films in 2019. I'm telling you. It's one of the great years of film in the history of cinema. And there's a lot of these really great and different films. The Lighthouse is very different from The Irishman or 1917 or they're all very different, but they give you get a slice of whatever you want. You can find it somewhere.
And if nothing else, I'm just so happy that all of these movies got made in the first place.
Exactly.
That's what I'm really happy about. I don't have to like them. I don't have to love them. I don't, whatever. But like, I'm just glad they exist.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, that's our 2019 top 10 films. Thanks a lot for listening. We'll be back again next week. I think next week, The Devil All the Time is coming out on Netflix.
Oh, cool. I want to. I want to see that.
I haven't heard great things about it so far, but doesn't matter to me. I'm going to watch it.
I got a feeling it's going to be one of those Netflix movies like The Highwaymen or that Zac Efron movie they did about that serial killer. It's just kind of like
I did not like that.
Just right in the middle there, right middle bottom shelf, but like a lot of good actors in it. So
you'll see us review that probably. All right, guys, thanks a lot. Take care. Have a great one.
See ya.